Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to day two of the African American Mayors Association 2021 virtual annual conference. On day one of this conference, we covered topics such as building inclusive prosperity through entrepreneurship. We talked about broadband infrastructure and reimagining public safety. Today's conference is going to be just as exciting. Please note that all sessions will be live streamed via Facebook and YouTube and will be available on those platforms for future viewing. Thanks to the AAMA mayors and the Business Council members joining us today. Please feel free to post comments in the chat. We also want to thank our conference sponsors. Our presenting sponsors are AT&T, Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. Our diamond sponsors are AARP, Casey Family Programs, Cities United, Wells Fargo, and Comcast. Our quick fire chat was sponsored by Ctia, International Well Building Institute, Starbucks, Verizon, and Waste Management. Our gold sponsor is United Airlines, and our silver sponsor is ShotSpotter. The theme of this year's annual conference is Forward Together, Mayor's Vision for Resilient Communities. Throughout the two-day conference, AAMA will virtually gather mayors from across the country to discuss building and deepening relationships and developing creative solutions to strengthen communities in the times of change and uncertainty. Today's first session is Leadership During the COVID Era, a look back and look forward from vaccine education to broadband access, and is sponsored by our partners at AARP. So without further ado, I now welcome COVID vaccine education and multicultural engagement lead at AARP, Naikwalari Kwarte, who will be moderating the session.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Price, and good morning, mayors and distinguished guests. Welcome to day two of the African American Mayors Association 2021 virtual annual conference, Forward Together, Mayor's Vision for Resilient Communities. I'm Dr. Naikwalari Kwarte, COVID-19 vaccine education and multicultural engagement lead at AARP. The impact of COVID-19 on Black communities has been staggering, revealing and exacerbating longstanding racial disparities in our health and in our economy. And at AARP, we believe that this is absolutely unacceptable. In fact, from AARP's perspective, the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on older people of color is tragedy. Considering that nearly 95% of COVID-19 deaths have been people over the age of 50, and around 40% of all deaths have been among nursing home residents and staff, with Black and Hispanic nursing home residents dying at 3 times the rate of other residents. There's new CDC data that shows that the life expectancy in the US declined by a full year in the first half of 2020, the worst decline since World War II. Even more troubling, the average life expectancy decreased by 2.7 years for non-Hispanic Black people. Now, the vaccination distribution is underway across the nation, and we've got to continue to push harder to make equity a top priority. But we also have to do the work to make sure that Black communities are just as much a part of the recovery from this pandemic as other communities. And in this session, Leadership During the COVID-19 Era, a look back and a look forward from vaccine education to broadband access, AARP and the African American Mayors Association have partnered to bring together an esteemed panel of mayors to discuss how they continue to lead their cities through these unprecedented times and the challenges of ensuring an equitable recovery. Please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, no stranger to AARP, Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, and Mayor Wayne Messam of Miramar, Florida. Mayor Stephen Reed of Montgomery, Alabama was scheduled to join us, but was not able to, and so he sends his regards. But we want to thank you all for being here today. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Mayor Messam, I want to start with you. Miramar, Florida has a pretty significant senior population, and Florida has been in the headlines throughout this pandemic. And I want to give you an opportunity to start off by reflecting on your leadership and some of the lessons learned from leading a response to the pandemic, particularly among seniors.
Well, thanks so much for having me here today, as well as the representation of the city of Miramar. As many of the mayors across the country may know, South Florida was the epicenter of a lot of the COVID-19 cases that was experienced over the last year. And with Miramar being at the heart of South Florida, equidistance between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, it not only caused us pause, but it really heightened our awareness and our activity to ensure that our city was safe. And among our residents, our senior population was the most vulnerable. We have a very active senior program in the city of Miramar, where we provide a plethora of social services as well as quality of life benefits, because they're very active, very accustomed to interacting, going on field trips, and being a part and ingrained in our community. So one of the first things we did was to ensure that some of the basic services and necessities were met. We quickly instituted a food distribution program to ensure that our seniors had food to eat in a safe manner. We've partnered with Feeding South Florida, as well as working with our social services department to do home deliveries for those seniors who didn't have transportation to get the bag drop and go stopping points, where we made distribution points throughout the city. Second, we wanted to ensure that wellness visits were made, because initially, before you could even get a COVID-19 test, you had to have a referral from a physician. So we knew that maybe some of our seniors may not have had healthcare coverage, so we did not want that to be a barrier. I worked very hard with the state of Florida to ensure that the city of Miramar had our own testing site, and we were able to get one located right in this a walk-up site, in fact, in the heart of the community, so our seniors and other vulnerable populations could access that. And finally, we wanted to make sure that our seniors would not be threatened by shelter. We provided rental assistance. We also provided utility bill assistance, just to make sure that the quality of life and the basic necessities, as we got a grip of COVID-19, as we were in the middle of the storm, we wanted to ensure that not only our seniors were safe, had masks, able to visit doctors, but to get tested if they needed so.
Same question for you, Mayor Benjamin. In Columbia, South Carolina, can you sort of reflect on your leadership and some of the lessons learned from leading response to the pandemic, particularly among some of the seniors of Columbia, South Carolina?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Corte. It's an honor to again be with my colleagues at the African American Mayors Association. Thanks to Mayor Price for his leadership. It's always great being with my friend and brother, Wayne Messam. And Doc, you and the AARP, I will tell you that the journey we've been on the last decade together has been an amazing journey, and I'm so thankful for the partnership here with AARP. Always keeping it very real about what we're dealing with, but always looking forward. I think even the way this panel is framed, the fact that we're talking about vaccine education and we're talking about broadband access, we're obviously recognizing where we're coming from. But recognizing that the new normal that we're looking forward to can't be the same as the old normal. That there are some significant challenges, some significant disparities that were illuminated in a very significant way during the pandemic. Speaker recently said the pandemic served almost as an X-ray of American society that revealed so many broken bones. And obviously we understand the challenges as it relates to our senior population. That were illuminated so painfully during the last year, which I told a group in Knoxville the other day that last year actually serves as 7 years. It was a dog year. It was a dog year without the warmth and love of a dog. It was 7 years. So Wayne, we've been in office a lot longer than we think we have. The last year, obviously, like some of you, like Wayne City and some of us, we stepped up very significantly, recognizing not only very early on the data showed us that our senior population was being affected in a much more significant way that our Black seniors and brown seniors across the country were being hit even harder in the early days of the pandemic. A large-scale national crisis where very early on we had very little information. We did our very best to follow the data that we had available to us and use that data to give us good intelligence, use that intelligence to create good policy being driven by our One True North. Our One True North was the preservation of human life. That's it. We endeavored to build strong intergovernmental and intersectoral partnerships that would help us use our bully pulpit of the mayor's office to just push information out as much as possible. And as we waited for the first wave of COVID relief from the federal government, we decided, just as Mayor Messam said, just to take action on the local level. We know that things happen in cities. Sometimes they don't happen in DC. Sometimes they don't happen at state capitals. But mayor and local government officials are on the ground, and we realize we see a need, and that's why developing partnerships that help us get hundreds of thousands of meals out to seniors, that lever partnerships between some of our wonderful AmeriCorps Vista volunteers and interns. We use them to pull together a partnership between some of our young people who are making some tough decisions in life, whether to take the road less traveled by or the road that's well worn, and put them together, put together a senior wellness network in which we stayed in contact with hundreds of seniors through the mayor's office to make sure that their needs were being met as it relates to nutrition, or at that point early on testing opportunities. We did in our most challenged area of the city, where some of these healthcare indicators that served as a predicate, quite frankly, for mortality, were very real. We've obviously, through our Meals on Wheels and Senior Resources Program, delivered probably well over 500,000 meals across the city, again funded with city money, understanding that there would be some major challenges coming as the pandemic unfolded. Again, I'll close this opening volley with where I started. It's a recognition that the old normal was not very good for a lot of people in our society. So we have a really an opportunity for an incredibly sizable exactly how we're going to prepare for this new normal. Some of the data, like you mentioned, it may be Mayor Price. It was actually you, Doc, talking about life expectancy. I mean, we've watched a number of different statistics over the last several decades on life success and financial success. Start dropping off in the last 10, 20 years. So how do we use this opportunity going forward around vaccine education, vaccine access, around broadband access? Probably the greatest silver lining that's come out of the pandemic is the belief that digital infrastructure is actually a right that we all should enjoy. How do we use this window to make sure that all of our citizens, and particularly our seniors, quite frankly, who help build the country in which we live right now, have the opportunity to live strong, fruitful lives that get, thank God, being extended in many ways, and hopefully in cities like Columbia and Miramar.
There's so much there, Mayor Benjamin. I want to stay with you for 1 second, and I appreciate the metaphor you just shared around the pandemic really acting as an X-ray and revealing America's broken bones. You also talked about data, and one thing that I often say, no data, no justice. And so keeping that in mind, what's the COVID vaccine state of play in Columbia, South Carolina? And have residents turned the corner on vaccine hesitancy? Are access issues prevalent for some communities more than others?
I think as your question suggests, the there's a whole lot more we all should be doing. I think we're seeing about 32% vaccination rates. Obviously, we got to get that to 70, 80%. But we're in line where a lot of the country, particularly the South, is right now. There's a lot more work to be done. We're still seeing some hesitancy, or at least a whole lot of folks who are kind of still taking their wait and see approach, and trying to develop some sense of urgency in getting access to the vaccine. We know, again, as your question suggests, that universal access and equitable access are two very different things. So how do you ensure that people have access to the vaccines, and yes, if possible, the vaccine that they prefer in a very easy way? So we're going to spend some time actually at the city council meeting today looking at a couple of more innovative approaches, stealing ideas, the very best ideas from my colleagues all around the country, including places like Mayor Turner's efforts in Houston, in which they're doing door-to-door vaccines. They launched some efforts in that regard. But if people want to go to the vaccine, we're going to take the vaccine to the people. And we're also launching a wonderful effort with our barbershops, just really trying to make sure that some of our men, we're seeing a significant number of actually young men who are also not seeking access to the vaccine. And we got to do a deeper dive and just keep on pressing. So our numbers again are still lower than they should be, not far from the national average, but just got to help again. In God we trust. Everyone else bring me data. The Deming quote I think is important. Data gives you a measure by which you can determine your success. And then if you can take that data and humanize it in a way and tell stories. So often we're driven by the anecdotes and not by the data. If you can find a way to take that data and wrap it up in stories that help people understand the importance, what it means to you, your family, not only your health, but your prosperity long term, then hopefully we can start seeing a much deeper penetration rate and acceptance rate of the vaccine. It is the way out of what we've been dealing with the last year and change right now. So hopefully we'll start seeing these numbers tick up, and we're going to do everything we can to push them up.
Thank you for that, Mayor Benjamin. Same question for you, Mayor Messam. What's the COVID vaccine state of play in Miramar, Florida? And have they turned the corner on vaccine hesitancy, or are access issues more prevalent for some folks in Miramar compared to others? Mayor Messam, I think you're on mute. That's all right. It happens to the best of us.
Okay, great. I think that the admin in the background muted me. I wasn't aware. But anyway, just like Mayor Benjamin stated, we are nowhere where we want to be in the city of Miramar. Currently, right now, throughout the city of Miramar, depending on zip code, we range anywhere from 33 to 39% of the population vaccinated. That compares to 53% of Broward County. And in some other cities where it may not be as black or brown in those respective municipalities, they're looking at percentages upwards of 70+%. So as you can see, we have a long way to go. Our approach is just because of the lack of access to vaccines initially. Our focus had been on getting our seniors and those most vulnerable with comorbid conditions vaccinated. So as many mayors may know across the country that may be online right now, South Florida is very densely populated. It's contiguous from West Palm Beach all the way down to Miami. So there's a big demand and a lot of just intra-competition for vaccine sites. So it took us about a month to get our own vaccine site within the city of Miramar. We have been successful in setting up pods where we were bringing vaccination sites directly to churches, right? So that our residents could have easy access to them. We knew that many of our clergy leaders who would be supporters of the vaccine, that their congregations and those that supported those churches would follow suit or would be a big influence. But our number one focus was to make sure that the vaccines were available for those who wanted to get the vaccine. Now we're entering into the phase of getting our medical community as well as other spheres of influences to provide the right information to our residents. When you're thinking about getting a vaccine, it's a personal choice because it's dealing with your health care. And we want to make sure that we're providing data, we're providing facts, and we're providing the right trusted individuals and putting them in front of our residents so they can balance the facts and the importance of getting the vaccine so their entire community can get back to what we used to know as normal, to be able to motivate them to get vaccines. Because the fact of the matter is we're fighting a lot of phobia. We're fighting a lot of historical challenges that have happened in the past. Our community is very diverse as relates to, there's a lot of Caribbean Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans from the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. All are here, and you have all of these cultures, all of these biases, and all of these perceptions that we are competing against. So we're really using spheres of influences from each of those respective communities for all of those demographics to show why it's important. We have a major regional campaign going on, and it's called I Did It, meaning that I got the vaccination. So we're using faces and voices of people who look like everyone in our community, showing the fact that I got the shot, and this is why I got it, and this is what it means to our community. It's so interesting to know that when COVID-19 first sparked as a pandemic, one of the first rumors was that African Americans and people of color aren't getting impacted by COVID-19. It was a big farce. And in fact, we were the ones who were being dealt the biggest blow because of many reasons: lack of access to healthcare, or even perhaps some comorbid conditions that just exacerbates the situation of contracting COVID-19. So we were able to help dispel a lot of those rumors and getting people tested. Now that we can get them tested, we want to get them vaccinated. And it's definitely a heavy lift, and it's something that the community as a whole is rallying behind so that we can improve our numbers to keep our community safe.
I just want to lift up a figure that you shared that really paints a picture of sort of the challenges we have around an equitable response to this pandemic. You had said at the top of your remarks, currently Miramar the vaccination rate ranges from 33 to 39%, compared to 53% for Broward County, and some places in the neighborhood upward of 70% vaccination rate. And so it's interesting that even in that footprint, you see such a great disparity. What a call to action! Thank you for sharing that, Mayor Messam. I want to transition the conversation and really connect the dots between vaccine education and high-speed internet. And Mayor Benjamin, I want to ask you, how has access to high-speed internet, how has it helped Columbia, South Carolina, weather the pandemic, and how has it limited access to high-speed internet how has limited access to the internet, how has it made the pandemic more difficult for your constituents?
Sure. The internet, the information superhighway. Again, I think the silver lining of the pandemic is the fact that people on every side of the aisle, I wish there were just two sides of the aisle. Now there's several, recognizes that the infrastructure of the 21st century is indeed digital infrastructure, and we have a window of opportunity now in which we can find some really thoughtful public partnerships, but anchored by real federal investment that build out that infrastructure. The existing digital infrastructure, I think, as Mayor Messam indicated, I think our community, particularly those represented by us on this call, also suffer from a significant amount of misinformation and disinformation on the internet. There was a time, Dr. Corday, you and Wayne are younger than I am, but when you can go on TV at 6 o'clock at night, and all the information that was to be shared, that your show didn't share with you earlier that day, we'd all get the same information at the same time. Now you have people getting information from so many different sources, literally dozens of sources. And some of it, quite frankly, is information that doesn't mean you well at all. And then obviously to the core of your question, usually historically, I should say, when people talk about access to the discussion has more so been about urban versus rural, urban suburban versus rural. The reality is that even in the core of many of our urban areas, there is not access to ubiquitous broadband or wireless internet. And this represents a real opportunity for some aggressive partnerships that, first of all, make internet access available, and then secondly, make it affordable. And there are a number of different efforts being led by my Congressman Jim Clyburn and several other members of as they pull together this infrastructure package to make sure, again, it's accessible and then it's affordable for folks all across the country. Because if you got to sign up for online through any number of these different platforms we use, and you're first of all not a digital native, and then you have to struggle to get access. The only way you can get access might be on your cell phone, not on the desktop or what have you. It significantly early on limited a number of folks being able to access those early phases that were obviously set aside for some of our older citizens. It was a real challenge and remains so. I will tell you again, the silver lining. I've seen some amazing partnerships emerge. I mean, we pulled together a partnership with some fantastic business leaders here, some faith leaders, in which we rolled out Wi-Fi in our most challenged census tract in the entire city that faces so many different issues. We rolled it out to make sure that not only could people access the platform for vaccine access when it became available, but also the school children who live there would have the ability to stay home and still receive their educations. It is the predicate, just as access to electrification that changed the world in the 1930s. It is a predicate to true economic opportunity and the city's vitality going forward. We'll have a little window here where we can pull together those smart partnerships, public-private, philanthropic partnerships with a real partner in the federal government. Wayne knows very well that all the infrastructure investments we make are usually local investments, maybe state investments, but 80% of the investments in infrastructure historically have been done by state and local government. The federal tax code to our advantage, but very little money coming from Washington. We have a window now where the focus is there, and we've got to jump through it to the overall benefit of our citizens.
Can you humanize this conversation just a little more and sort of anchor it into what looks like high-speed internet as infrastructure, what that looks like in Columbia, South Carolina? I think sometimes when we talk about infrastructure, I think there's some folks that just stop at roads and bridges and what has traditionally been infrastructure, and they don't think about the small businesses, or they don't think about the caregivers, unpaid caregivers, and how they have to utilize internet to perhaps work from home a few days a week to care for their loved one. Can you humanize high-speed internet as infrastructure in Columbia, South Carolina?
Absolutely. When you think about the lives that we lead. I'm not sure if I know Wayne. I've met Wayne's kids, but let me tell you what. You let the internet go down in my house. Wi-Fi go down, and then you think it was World War III or something like that. Do anything, and we live in the homes of relative privilege. But if you're talking about almost anything that you want to access as the world transitions to digital, now as we think about how AI and automation and advanced machine learning is already changing the world in the old normal, last year accelerated that trend by at least a decade. So 2031 came to 2021, and almost everything that you need to do, if it's shopping online to get your medicine that you might not, if you have challenges getting around, you have to get on the internet to have access to that. If it's, again, education, high quality education being delivered into our homes to our children. If in fact you do have access to the internet, you can order your food online. You can shop for groceries online. You can have access to Uber and Lyft and whatever it is, just to help you deal with mobility issues. But infrastructure is literally everything from roads, bridges, to if you turn that faucet on in the morning to get some water in your coffee cup. If you flush that toilet to make sure that stuff goes where it needs to go, or just flipping the switch to ensure that your electrical grid is up and running. I mean, these are the investments that we make every single day that are, quite frankly, defining of a developed nation. If in fact you don't have well-funded infrastructure, then in the 21st century, it's impossible for you to truly participate in American democracy. It's impossible for your business or your small business to grow without having an online presence that allows you to open up your markets in meaningful ways. And I will say this too, because I'd be remiss if I didn't. And I've talked about this on the AARP in the past. As we endeavor to build truly age-friendly cities, and we often talk about attracting millennials and Gen Zers and everything else, 50 to 60-year-olds are the most innovative and entrepreneurial cohort in American society right now. Start more businesses than any other age cohort. So you think about the resources there, the experience there. If we're going to build cities that attract this amazingly talented pool of individuals, you got to have digital infrastructure. I mean, you got to have the ability to help people grow their businesses. You think about this cohort again, the 50 to 60 marketplace pre-pandemic was a $7.6 trillion marketplace. So of course, there's different measurements with GDP, but if you took that as gross domestic product, that's the third largest economy in the world. The U.S., China, and 50 to 60-year-olds in the United States. So being able to build a thriving city for the next several decades means that you've got to have real digital infrastructure that allows your business and commerce, allows you to now worship online, as we still do in our family, allows your kids to be educated, allows you to get wonderful healthcare access as well. It is sacrosanct to our future as a society.
Thank you for that, Mayor Benjamin. Mayor Messam, how has the digital divide made the pandemic more challenging for your constituents in Miramar, Florida?
Well, it was a mix. It was a mixed challenge. Miramar being a developing suburban community, we're actually Florida's 13th largest city, rapidly growing. So we have the benefit of a lot of new infrastructure, but we do have a historic side of our town where many of our residents have just a working class community, and those may be a significant number of seniors as well. But humanizing what this impact of COVID-19 has done, if you think about it, to set up a test or to get a vaccination, what was one of the main avenues to be able to do so? Registering online, right? So if you don't have internet access, that could be a barrier. So for our seniors, we quickly identified those who are in our network to understand what their connectivity issue was. So for those who were without high-speed internet, we were able to leverage our city staff to ensure that we arranged their appointments. We took them to their tests, we take them to their vaccinations, and in some cases actually brought the test and bring the vaccinations to their homes for those who aren't physically able to make that trip. So that's bridging that gap. Because the city has been investing in our high-speed backbone throughout the city, all of our city facilities, not only within the facilities themselves, but in our parks, we have high-speed internet activity and access points throughout our city in every neighborhood in our community so that residents can have access. Now, I know that most of our conversation has been more focused on our seniors, but one of the programs I launched out of the mayor's office was leveraging our existing relationship with Comcast in their Internet Essentials program and providing free internet to our elementary, middle, and high school families that were without high-speed internet, so that now that many of our students were taking online courses, we didn't want that digital divide to impede the educational progress of our students. So those were some of the many ways we were able to assist our residents. Now, one of the big assets that made the city of Miramar very attractive to land our own testing site and our own vaccination site was because of this infrastructure we had in place. Because every vaccination site, every high-speed, every COVID-19 testing site, one of the requirements was to be able to connect to a high-speed internet connectivity so that reporting and information could be exchanged from that site to the state of Florida Department of Health for reporting purposes. So because we had that infrastructure in place, it was an easy sell for us to make that case why we needed the ability to be able to reach our residents. And we also leveraged the data when the CDC first came out with the report that African Americans were the most impacted from COVID-19, and we didn't have a site to test our residents or a site to provide vaccinations. We leveraged that data to say that this is why we need to have this site, opposed to going to other communities that perhaps every community needed it, but I had to make the case for my city and my residents to ensure that our most vulnerable was able to have access to those resources.
Wow, so much happening in Miramar, Florida, and Columbia, South Carolina. We're preparing to enter the Q&A segment of our discussion. And so for the folks that are streaming in, please remember to use the chat box feature to ask questions of Mayor Benjamin and Mayor Messon. Before we go to questions in the chat, I have one last question for the two of you. And I'm going to start with you, Mayor Benjamin. You know, right now between and you touched on a lot of this, but I want to give you an opportunity to add anything that you feel like adding. Right now, between the emergency broadband benefit (EBB) and the Biden-Harris administration's proposal to make historic investments in high-speed internet, how might these investments really make a material difference in the lives of the residents of Columbia, South Carolina, particularly the senior population in your city, which you've noted, are leaders in starting businesses, particularly that 50 to 64 cohort.
Sure. There's so many different discussions and levels of debate going on with the federal government. Most of them, I think, very healthy around this space. Again, the idea that that this is now that digital access is the predicate to prosperity for all Americans. It seems that people have coalesced around that fact. We've got to make sure. First of all, we got to figure out kind of where we are. Most of America, most people have no idea what's currently in the ground in terms of horizontal infrastructure, fiber in the ground. We've got the dark fibers there. So a lot of folks will probably go wireless, and wireless being a bridge to true broadband access as we build out these wonderful ubiquitous networks that give everyone access. I would hope that as the federal government looks at making what will be certainly long-term, but also strategic investments, that we think very carefully about what types of partnerships that we can have. This is not only meant to be a place where the public sector invests. This should be a smart public-private partnership, but obviously public-private partnerships must, if there's going to be public action and public resources, the public has to come first. So how do you work closely with amazing companies like the AT&Ts and the Verizons of the world that have existing infrastructure, and some of the newer companies that are looking to build out wireless networks as well? How do you use these resources very effectively to make sure that we take this shot in a way that inures long-term? We're not making these investments for 2021. We're making them for posterity, for 2031, 2041, 2051. So how do we act very aggressively? And again, I think it starts with smart intersectoral partnerships that includes folks like AARP at the table, but it starts very much as this new administration has very already admitted and invested with those of us on the local level, working closely with mayors who understand our communities, putting us to work, helping us to work on the plans for our regional areas to help deploy these new digital assets. But it's gonna require a lot more chess than checkers. We can't just throw money out there. We've got to find ways to truly build partnerships that lever the resources and the expertise of the private sector and balance it with true public sector needs. You can come to my downtown and build out as much infrastructure as you possibly can, but you're going to have to go across the tracks too. How do you use the levers of public policy to make sure that you have those balanced investments so that we can all win and grow together?
Thank you for that, Mayor Benjamin. And Mayor Messam, I want to share with you a question from the chat. How do you engage your fellow mayors in smaller towns with a traditional way of leadership to embrace a more forward-thinking policies and activities? This question is from Shanquetta Shade Cunningham, and she says that she lives in Arkansas, and she says our communities are dying out for various reasons, and we have to acknowledge the role leadership has in the process, along with our systemic factors as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, and oftentimes, mayors who may be in a more urban environment where there's a lot of innovation that's going on and a lot of development and expansion, and we can quickly not even think about some of the challenges that are going on in rural America. Therefore, like the question that just came in. But I guess the best comparison that I can give is that mayors who may be in more urban settings and more of a metropolis area, we have similar challenges as it relates to getting infrastructure built out into some of our more depressed areas where there's not a fiscal incentive for the private sector to bring infrastructure out there. And I think that's where our federal government, our state governments, as well as some of our local governments can give more of an incentive to the private sector, partnering with them to perhaps make it more or incentivize that activity to broaden out into these areas that may not necessarily be more desirable for them in terms of what may looks good initially on the balance sheet. Because once we're able to get infrastructure out to rural America, once we're able to get more infrastructure and high speed and connectivity out to our more depressed areas, it really now puts those residents and those individuals in the game. One of the things that we realize here in the city of Miramar that, the definition of work is changing. It's not more so you coming in and punching in the time clock to check into work. It's you waking up, going into your living room or your dining room table, logging in to clock in, and you need to have that connectivity. So with our city and rural communities can do this too. See where it applies, where you can adopt smart city concepts, where you're really looking into how you're going to get innovation into your community. Think outside of the box. It may not be there now, but begin to plan for it now and make the case, because when you do so, you not only can the data that results from that, like for our seniors, for example, we have a big effort in terms of implementing even more GIS, where we know where our seniors are located, so we know where to direct services. We're by us knowing where our seniors are, we know what needs they have, and we can more efficiently provide it to them. We're partnering.
Yes, and we very much appreciate all of the best practices and next practices that are coming out of Miramar, Florida. I would like to thank Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, also Mayor Wayne Messam of Miramar, Florida. Mayor Steve Reed of Montgomery, Alabama was unable to join us, but hopefully we'll catch him another time. I want to thank you both for participating in this really insightful discussion where we've attempted to connect the dots between all the valiant work that's happening on the COVID vaccine education front and ensuring an equitable response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to thank you for being so forward-looking, connecting those dots between COVID-19 and the potential for our communities related to high-speed internet. AARP is proud to partner with the African American Mayors Association in this meaningful work today and moving forward. We want to encourage people to go to aarp.org/coronavirus for all the latest information in all states across the country related to the COVID vaccine. We're constantly updating that site with the latest information from the CDC and from public health departments and other officials across the country. That's aarp.org/coronavirus. Now, please stay tuned for AAMA's annual Legacy Award taking place at 11 a.m. Eastern.
I was sitting in class and we had gotten the notice that schools were gonna shut down and we're probably not gonna open for the next few months. And at first I was a little excited because I'm like, we don't have to go to school now. But it was really hard at the beginning because I didn't have a way to connect without the school's internet connection.
We would have to go to the library and use their internet service.
Not only was I stressed, I was kind of sad because we weren't actually able to do video chat because I didn't want to be too loud and I would turn things in late. And it wasn't because I was being irresponsible, it was because I physically had no way to do it. Then the library got shut down, so we didn't really have any way to do my schoolwork or attend my classes for a few weeks. I thought I was just going to have to struggle through this until schools opened up again. I overcame these issues when I had got the hotspot so I could get to class from my bedroom, and it helped me a lot because I no longer had to sit outside in the cold waiting for something to open or close, and I was able to get to video chats and participate with my class. I'm getting better grades than I actually was getting in regular school.
She's just so bright and she's so smart and inquisitive. It's very important to me for her to just stay on that path.
My 5th grade graduation, it was really fun actually, and without the hotspot, I don't think I was actually going to be able to attend it.
Oh, you look like a superhero. Awesome.
And there's this whole ceremony for us, and my mom actually also decorated to make it extra special, and it was really fun.
It was a beautiful way to end the school year. I don't know how to put it into words. Every time I think of our hotspot, I have to think of that moment.
Hi, I'm Harry Anostopoulos, Director of External Affairs for CTIA. I'd like to thank AAMA for hosting this important series of discussions and its member mayors for providing critical leadership during these challenging times. The pandemic has made abundantly clear that reliable, high-speed broadband internet is critical for all Americans in cities large and small, coast to coast. And as we just saw with Temple's story, wireless provides this connectivity to millions of Americans. In fact, NIH estimates that in the first half of 2020 alone, more than 73% of children and 62% of adults lived in wireless-only households. In 2020, our kitchens became both our virtual classrooms and our remote offices, and we celebrated milestones and moments with our friends and family via video chat. Our mobile data use skyrocketed, increasing by about 40% last year. Wireless rose to the occasion because, remarkably, during this same time, Median wireless speeds increased by nearly 50%, but faster speeds won't help those without any connectivity at all. And these individuals have faced greater challenges and opportunity inequities during COVID-19. Working together, we've made real progress, but we must all continue to work collaboratively to bridge the digital divide. We proudly support the FCC's Emergency Broadband Benefit, a new historic program that will keep low-income households connected during the pandemic. And the wireless industry will continue working with the FCC to ensure eligible consumers in local communities across America can use these funds for mobile wireless service to stay connected to family, friends, jobs, and schools. And we are also invested in ensuring kids have the tools they need to stay engaged with their classmates and teachers. To date, the wireless industry has helped connect 2.4 million students by partnering with school districts and local governments to provide free and discounted devices and data plans, as well as millions of dollars in donations and resources. And keeping students connected is a team effort in the long term. Providers are committed to continuing this work with state and local education departments to connect more students and bridge the digital divide. We would also love to hear from school districts that are actively seeking connectivity solutions. CTIA launched the Connecting Kids initiative to simplify the process for school districts to find remote learning hotspots by connecting them with wireless operators working to provide broadband access to kids and families in their area. As we continue to navigate the pandemic, we're also focused on what a post-COVID world will look like. 5G networks will play a key role in rebuilding our economy and helping our country recover, so we can tackle the pressing challenges from climate change to opportunity inequities that we must address together.
5G is the fifth generation of wireless. To understand it, you need to understand where it all began. First-generation wireless networks got us started with phone calls. Soon came text messaging, and eventually, the mobile web. Then 4G got us video chatting, ride-sharing, social networking, and using apps for just about everything. Like the generations that came before, 5G will change our lives in all sorts of unexpected ways. The first 5G networks are live across the country, and they'll continue to improve the coming years, becoming up to 100 times faster than today's 4G networks, putting high-speed broadband in the palm of your hand and allowing you to stream picture-perfect 4K video and download whatever you want, whenever you want, instantly. But faster speeds are just the start, because 5G will be 5 times more responsive than today's networks and will connect 100 times more devices. That means phones won't be the only smart wireless devices. 5G will connect us to our world in new and innovative ways. From driverless cars that communicate with each other to avoid accidents, to roads, buildings, bridges, and pipes telling us when they need repairs. Augmented reality applications that create new learning experiences, and new healthcare models such as patient monitoring and remote surgery. We're only just beginning to imagine the possibilities. That's 5G, coming to everything near you.
U.S. wireless providers have been outbuilding 5G networks, the foundation for our country's post-pandemic recovery. America's wireless companies are investing an estimated $275 billion into building 5G networks. And this new 5G economy will create 4.5 million new jobs and add $1.5 trillion to the economy. In the past year, we've seen 3 nationwide 5G networks launched, and more cell sites are being added every day. More and more mobile devices that can harness the power of 5G are available. As I've heard our CEO, Meredith Atwell-Baker, say, wireless is already the broadband on-ramp for millions of Americans, but we can and must do more to drive greater broadband adoption, so we can ensure everyone benefits from our 5G economy. For my friends at AAMA, who I haven't seen in what feels like ages, can't wait to see you again in person once it's safe to do so. Thank you.
My name is Sulima Espinel, Vice President for Global Public Policy at Starbucks Coffee Company. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to join you today and share with you Starbucks' continued work to build strong, inclusive communities through renewed commitments to the cities you lead. 2020 was an incredibly challenging year for all of our communities. The unprecedented impacts of the global pandemic affected our partners, our employees' lives, the communities we serve, and underscored the importance for companies like ours to support the cities you have so courageously led over the past year. At the beginning of the pandemic, we created a COVID-19 playbook to outline the protocols we would use to keep our partners safe and to support them during the early and uncertain days of the pandemic. These 3 principles continue to guide us as we navigate the pandemic with a continued commitment to prioritize the health and well-being of our partners and customers, to play a constructive role to support health and government officials as they work to mitigate the spread of this virus, and to show up in a positive and responsible way to serve our communities. Our commitment to these principles continues as we work with leaders like you to promote and support COVID-19 mitigations, such as contact tracing, vaccinations, and economic recovery. As the world shifts to the vaccine distribution process, we will continue to demonstrate our dedication to these principles by using our scale to prioritize partner care and education and help them understand how they can access the vaccine. We will support our public health officials as they do the hard work to distribute the vaccine and look for innovative ways to assist our communities. 2020 also brought forward a much-needed national conversation about the importance of advancing racial and social equity. 50 years ago, Starbucks set out to be a different kind of company with a third-place community where everyone is welcome and respected. We are committed to continue the work to uphold that commitment. In October, we announced bold actions to act with intention, transparency, and accountability to create a strategic vision for the work ahead. In October, we released additional workforce diversity statistics, and we established annual inclusion and diversity goals to increase Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, representation to at least 30% at all corporate levels and at least 40% at all retail and manufacturing roles by 2025. We are also establishing an Inclusion and Diversity Equity Council to better integrate this work through our organization. Late last year, we issued $1.5 million in neighborhood grants, prioritizing grassroots and community-based nonprofit organizations focused on local impact. These grants are aimed at uplifting organizations that serve Black Americans and those supporting nearly 400 local nonprofit organizations across the country. We are investing $5 million to launch a 2-year initiative focused on supporting nonprofits that serve BIPOC youth by accelerating investments in inclusion and diversity practices, mentorship and youth leadership development, and youth skill building to create thriving and equitable communities across the U.S. On January 13th, we announced a plan to invest in CDFIs across the country. And by 2025, the Starbucks Community Resilience Fund plans to invest $100 million to advance racial equity and environmental resilience by supporting small business growth and community development projects in neighborhoods with historically limited capital access. As we celebrate 50 years as a business and a company that made third-place connections the heart of our existence, we look forward to continuing our work with you and our support for the people that you serve. And as we eventually move to a post-pandemic recovery, we are committed to forging resilient communities that are inclusive and diverse, and cities where entrepreneurs have an opportunity to build strong, sustainable businesses that will thrive for years to come. Thank you for your leadership of our great American cities. And please know that Starbucks stands with you in making our nation a better place for all.
fellow mayors, and distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the African American Mayors Association's annual Legacy Awards. We are gathered to celebrate and honor the 2021 AAMA Legacy Award recipients for excellence in service, in civic engagement, business, and economic development. Now, while I wish we were together in person to honor these recipients, we are not. But it is different for us this year. We are fortunate to have a generous group of conference sponsors who have made this virtual gathering possible. So I want to thank our sponsors today, including our presiding or presenting sponsors, AT&T, Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, our diamond sponsors are AARP, KC Family Programs, Cities United, Wells Fargo, and Comcast. Our quickfire chat sponsors are CTIA, International Well Building Institute, Starbucks, Verizon, and Waste Management. Our gold sponsor is United Airlines, and our silver sponsor is ShotSpotter. I would like to acknowledge AAMA's phenomenal board of trustees who have provided unwavering leadership in such an unprecedented time. Thank you also to our advisory board who worked alongside the board of trustees, offering counsel and wisdom to further the mission of AAMA. And of course, the annual conference is also made possible by the AAMA Business Council. AAMA has benefited from extraordinary leadership of the council's outgoing business chair, Paul Housington, and the vice chair, Calvin Booker. We have an incredible event planned as we award those who have shown exceptional leadership, service, and excellence to AAMA as well as our communities. Before we begin, we have a special message from our keynote speaker, Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Marsha Fudge.
Many thanks to the leadership of the African American Mayors Association, including Mayor McKinley Price and the entire Board of Trustees, for inviting me to this wonderful event. Thanks as well to every member of this association for all your outstanding leadership. As a former mayor and a proud alum of the AAMA, I understand firsthand the incredible difference you all make every day. Over the past 14 months, you have been on the forefront of the effort to help the American people persevere through the COVID-19 crisis. We all know the pandemic has devastated families across our country, especially communities of color and communities with large numbers of low-income residents. Right now, more than 20 million households are behind on their rent or their mortgage payments. Fortunately, I am here to report help is on the way. The Biden-Harris American Rescue Plan will deliver nearly $22 billion in emergency rental support, along with $10 billion to help homeowners avoid foreclosure. Furthermore, it provides $5 billion in emergency vouchers for people who are homeless or at risk of experiencing homelessness. Please contact us if you need more information, as we are finding that many of our cities are not fully utilizing the tools at their disposal. I'm proud to say that I cast my final vote as a member of Congress to help pass the American Rescue Plan. Now, as the 18th Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, I have the great honor of helping to enact this landmark law. In the weeks and months ahead, HUD will continue to work together with you and your communities to ensure this funding reaches people in need. The Biden-Harris administration understands that helping families weather this crisis is only one part of the task before us. Moving forward, we have the added responsibility and the great opportunity to provide more Americans with the chance to live each day with security, with dignity, and with hope. You can see President Biden's commitment to expanding housing opportunity in this new infrastructure bill. Known as the American Jobs Plan, it contains a historic investment of $213 billion to help build, preserve, and modernize more than 2 million affordable and sustainable places to live. In the process, his plan would put millions of Americans to work in good-paying jobs, and nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs it creates would not require a college degree. That is why I will do everything in my power to help champion its passage. As HUD Secretary, I will make fair housing enforcement a central priority. The reality is that people of color continue to face discrimination in our housing market when trying to rent homes, to secure loans, and to move into neighborhoods where their families can thrive. It is long past the time for our country to fully realize the promise of the Fair Housing Act. This means we must have an effective disparate impact rule to help root out systemic racism from our housing market. In addition, I'm happy to report that we are taking strong steps to affirmatively further fair housing, and I look forward to sharing more news about these steps in the near future. The Biden-Harris administration understands that we cannot accomplish our agenda alone. We need the big ideas and the bold action of leaders such as you. Leaders who understand better than anyone the unique challenges and opportunities that exist in each of your communities. I promise that as HUD Secretary, I will do everything I can to listen and to engage with you and to empower you with the resources and the support you need to improve the lives of the people you serve. Together, we can help our nation rebuild from this pandemic stronger than ever before and forge communities that are fairer, more resilient, and more abundant with opportunity. Thank you very much and have a wonderful conference.
Thank you, Secretary Fudge. We look forward to your leadership as you work to ensure fair and equitable housing for all. At this time, we will now begin the AAMA 2021 Legacy Award Ceremony. The President's Award for Service to AAMA recognizes an individual for exceptional leadership in public service. This year, we are presenting this prestigious award to 2 recipients. Our first honoree served as the founding executive director and general counsel of the African American Mayors Association for 7 years. She recruited and hired a dynamic staff and launched the Business Council and the Advisory Board to establish an organization dedicated to uplifting the voices of African American mayors. She left the AAMA earlier this year for an exciting new opportunity to serve as the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Department of Commerce, Office of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs. Now, while we are sad to see her leave, we are pleased to work with her in this new role and to continue our important work. Stephanie's service to AAMA is ingrained into the association that we all serve today. Today's first recipient of the President's Award for Service to AAMA is Stephanie Mash Sykes, Esquire.
The African American Mayors Association, in honor of the 2021 President's Award for Service to the AAMA, recognizes Stephanie Mash Sykes, Esquire, for their exceptional leadership and service to our organization. As the founding executive director and former general counsel of the AAMA, we are honored to celebrate the leadership and service that Stephanie has contributed to our organization.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Mash Sykes, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Department of Commerce for the Biden-Harris administration. As a founder and the former Executive Director and General Counsel of the African American Mayors Association, I am humbled to be a 2021 recipient of the President's Award for Service. Congratulations to the other esteemed honorees. Today is almost 7 years to the day of the association's founding. I am honored to have had the opportunity to serve in furtherance of such an important organization. Until February of this year, I had the privilege to lead the talented and dedicated staff and I continue to admire their creativity and commitment to the mission. Under the leadership of 8 extraordinary presidents and their teams, I was honored to provide members with critical resources to move our cities forward. We worked together to amplify the collective voice of Black mayors on the national stage. We expanded the policy and advocacy reach. We grew the membership, and we increased the organization's resources and staff. Even as the nation continues to confront many challenges, I am heartened to see the footprint and impact of AAMA is larger than ever. I offer my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to work with the outgoing president, Mayor McKinley Price of Newport News, Virginia. I would also like to congratulate Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston, Texas, on his election as the next president. I look forward to witnessing the continued success of the association in the years to come. Thank you again for this amazing honor.
Our second recipient of the President's Award for Service to the AAMA has been a vital part of our efforts to address health disparities, providing expertise on the disproportionate effect of COVID-19 and maternal mortality on African American communities. Dr. Joya Claire Perry is a physician, a policy expert, and thought leader and advocate for transformational justice. As the founder and president of the National Birth Equity Collaborative, she identifies and challenges racism as a root cause for health inequities. Quite simply, the work she is doing is saving lives. It is my pleasure to present to Dr. Claire Perry with the President's Award for the Service to AAMA.
The African American Mayors Association, in honor of the 2021 President's Award for Service to the AAMA, recognizes Dr. Joya Claire Perry for their exceptional leadership and service to our organization. She has brought her tremendous skills and labor to uplifting AAMA, and we are delighted to uplift and celebration her contributions.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joya Claire Perry, founder and president of the National Birth Equity Collaborative, and I'm so honored today to receive the award from the African American Mayors Association for service to your association. It's been an honor and a privilege to work in hand with people like Stephanie Sykes and many others like Mayor Price to ensure that Black birthing people are able to thrive across the United States and our families are seen as fully valuable and fully loved. And so we're excited and honored to receive this award, and we hope that we can continue in partnership with your prestigious organization and all the amazing mayors like my own mayor, Latoya Cantrell, across the United States. So thank you.
Our next award is the AAMA President's Award for Civic Engagement. This award recognizes an individual for exemplary work in encouraging greater civic engagement. As several states in our nation deal with laws threatening the voting rights of the African American community, the recipient of this award has led efforts to protect those rights in the state of Georgia and across the nation. She has made it her mission to advocate for free and fair elections through launching Fair Fight. She has also worked to ensure accuracy in the 2020 census by launching Fair Count. Her dedicated work ensures people are heard and counted. And I am proud to honor Stacey Abrams as the 2021 recipient of the President's Award for Civic Engagement.
The African American Mayors Association, in honor of the 2021 President's Award for Civic Engagement, celebrates the exemplary work of Stacey Abrams, whose organization, Fair Fight Action, works tirelessly to ensure that every American has a voice in our election system. We are honored to celebrate her work and effort in empowering great civic engagement.
I appreciate this opportunity to join the annual Legacy Awards for the African American Mayors Association. Thank you to the AAMA President, Mayor McKinley Price, for honoring me with the President's Award for Civic Engagement. The work of civic engagement is not a singular role. We are, each of us, called to contribute our measure of service in pursuit of a strengthened democracy and a more civil society. I learned early on from my parents that we are obliged to shape the world we wish to inhabit. Through service and through voting, we remake the future. Mayors and those who stand with our local governments are closest to the needs of the people. And when we have an electorate that believes in its power, it can see its potential. Through the work of Fair Fight and Fair Count, I have been privileged to lead 2 exceptional organizations that understand the vibrancy of our municipalities. Through collaborations with African American mayors in particular, we helped to combat the assault on our right to vote in 2020 and to increase our participation in the 2020 census. But unfortunately, the diversity and the capacity it reveals has emboldened those who leverage voter suppression rather than better ideas. In Georgia alone, where record turnout from communities of color fueled the election of our first Black senator and our first Jewish senator, we now face anti-voting legislation that will limit accessibility to the ballot box. SB 202 will allow counties to restrict early voting times from 7 to 7 and instead only keep polling places open from 9 to 5. Where long lines have become too familiar, the law criminalizes handing out water and snacks to voters waiting in long lines, adds additional ID requirements for vote by mail, bans mobile voting, shortens the absentee ballot request period, and consolidates power at the state legislature. The only clear rationale for these laws is the fear of the increase in civic engagement, particularly by voters of color. But while they are willing to add to the burdens of voting for those who already face an imperfect system, we will continue to educate, navigate, and defeat suppression at its source. African American mayors are the frontline workers of democracy, securing resources to respond to COVID, encouraging distribution of the vaccine where access and not hesitancy is the culprit, and helping our small businesses support our communities. I encourage you to continue your advocacy at the federal level, supporting investments in infrastructure, deployment of more resources for recovery, and fighting for passage of the federal voting rights laws through the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. You are a voice for the people, and I am proud to be in the chorus. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have the AAMA Reginald F. Lewis Award for Business Excellence. This award recognizes a business council member for exceptional support of AAMA. Today's honoree is Paula Housington, a founding business council member who served AAMA as vice chair, as well as the first woman chair of the council. She did all while serving as vice president of Net Communications. Ms. Housington currently serves as the executive director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. She leads the organization in its primary mission to develop, conduct, and promote educational, research, and training programs to enhance the effectiveness of its members as they consider legislation and issues of public policy. These efforts directly and indirectly impact the lives of African American constituents within their respective jurisdictions. AAMA is pleased to honor Paula Housington as the 2021 Reginald F. Lewis Award recipient.
The African American Mayors Association, in honor of the 2021 Reginald F. Lewis Award, recognizes Paula Hoisington for commitment to the AAMA. As the Vice President of Net Communications, Paula Hoisington has leveraged her expertise to mutually and beneficially collaborate with our organization. We are honored to celebrate your exceptional commitment and highlight the importance of your work.
Good afternoon. I would first like to say thank you to Mayor Price and the members of the Aama board. Thank you so much for considering me for the Reginald Lewis Business Award. I'm so humbled, honored, that you felt me worthy to receiving this award. To the national staff, Demarius, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to push the limit. To Janey and Lisa, for being the valuable resources that you have been, for allowing me to bug you guys, which you know that I have done. To my colleagues, members of the Business Council, thank you. Thank you for entrusting me to be your chairwoman for the last 2 years. For truly this has been a team effort. Thank you for having those intentional conversations, those conversations that allowed us to bring information to our mayors to assist them in building bigger, better communities. Thank you for having those conversations. Thank you for always being there. One of the philosophies that I've always had in my career is make sure that what you're doing it for the right reasons. Surround yourself with good people that allow you to move forward and do those things that need to be done. So to all of you, I say thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for working beside me and with me. And to Stephanie, who has now gone on to the Biden-Harris administration, thank you. Thank you for accepting the phone calls. Thank you for allowing me to push the envelope. Thank you for allowing me to help make Aama grow. And to my NET communications team, this has definitely been a team effort. And for all that we have done over the years to work with Aama, I say thank you. Some of you know that I've moved on to the National Black Caucus of State Legislators as the executive director. So this is not goodbye. This is just see you later. I look forward to the opportunities for us to collaborate with NBCSL and Aama so that we can continue to build bigger, better communities all across this nation. So I say not goodbye, but see you later. And until we meet again, let's stay safe. I wish you peace, love, and happiness. And let's stay safe until the time that we can come together again. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and let's practice social distancing. With that, I say I love you. Peace out.
Thank you, Paula. Our final award is the Maynard Jackson Award for Excellence in Economic Development. Named after the late Mayor Maynard Jackson of Atlanta, Georgia, this award recognizes a current or former mayor for outstanding work in municipal economic development efforts. The 2021 Maynard Jackson Award goes to AAMA Board of Trustees member Mayor Byron Brown of Buffalo, New York. Mayor Brown has been a champion of Buffalo's revival with a vision that embraces inclusiveness, equity, and opportunity. Under his leadership, the city has experienced significant progress, including more than $7.3 billion in new economic development activity, which is expected to create over 12,000 new jobs. His continued vision is of a thriving, healthy, and innovative Buffalo, a city that embraces inclusiveness, equity, and opportunity for all. Congratulations, Mayor Brown, and thank you for your leadership.
The African American Mayors Association, in honor of the 2021 Maynard Jackson Award for Excellence in Municipal Economic Development, is proud to honor Buffalo, New York Mayor Byron Brown, who has overseen $7.3 billion in new economic development, creating over 12,000 new jobs. We are proud to celebrate your excellence in economic development.
I would like to thank the African American Mayors Association President, Mayor McKinley L. Price of Newport News, Virginia, the Board of Trustees, and the staff for recognizing me with the Maynard Jackson Economic Development Award. In 2006, when I took office as mayor, the city of Buffalo had a struggling economy, small businesses faced many challenges, job creation was slow, and the city was filled with vacant, unsalvageable structures. In order to rebuild Buffalo's economy, I developed a strategic plan to focus on these issues. Buffalo is a proud city with hard-working people, a city that never gives up, a diverse city made up of families that have been here for generations, as well as new Americans who resettled here to find a better life. My plan focused on attracting more homeowners and businesses to the city by cutting residential and commercial taxes. To make Buffalo competitive, I held the line on or cut property taxes for 13 years. I also worked with government leaders across the state, including the governor, to invest money in business growth, job training, and infrastructure. This helped revitalize downtown, neighborhood business corridors, and attracted private investment from developers. Like Maynard Jackson was the first black mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, I am Buffalo's first black mayor. While working to stabilize the economy, I have always focused on equity and opportunity for all. My administration leveraged city, state, and private resources to create place-based solutions such as the Northland Workforce Training Center, the Beverly Gray Business Exchange Center to provide technical assistance to minority, women, and small businesses, and infrastructure improvements to rebuild Buffalo's historically disinvested communities. It is a tremendous honor to receive this recognition in the name of the late Mayor Maynard Jackson. I will continue to grow the city of Buffalo as a place of opportunity for all people by following the critically important principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations to each of our honorees. On behalf of AAMA, our member mayors, and the cities and counties we serve, I am proud to thank you for your leadership and service. It is an honor to know and work alongside each of you. This concludes AAMA's 2021 Legacy Awards, and please join us at noon Eastern Time for our 2021 gavel ceremony. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tashara Jones. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm so proud to be the first Black woman elected for the mayor of the city of St. Louis, Missouri. I first want to thank so many of you from the African American Mayors Association for your support. From your donations to your advocacy to your words of advice and support, I'm so grateful for the groundbreaking leaders who have laid the foundation for leaders like me. As we know all too well, when people who look like us rise to higher roles in leadership, we are held to a higher standard than our white colleagues. Throughout my campaign, and even just 2 weeks into the mayor's office, I've already had to push back against the establishment that dares to criticize me for doing exactly what I told them I was going to do. But it's through our collective power that we rise above the bias, the hatred, and the double standards that help us advance agendas that helps and serves the least of these. I'm only getting started setting St. Louis on a new track that's united, strong, confident, and equitable. And I look forward to working with all of you to move your cities forward as well. Thank you and God bless.
Greetings, I'm Kim Janey, Mayor of the great city of Boston. And as the first woman and first Black mayor of Boston, I am standing on the shoulders of so many Black women in our city who have broken down barriers. Women called to lead almost in all areas of public life. I am so fortunate to join the sisterhood of Black women mayors leading cities across our country today. I appreciate their leadership and I'm proud to be standing in solidarity with them. At my swearing in as the 55th mayor of Boston, I promised the city bold, courageous leadership, beginning with an unrelenting focus on addressing the impacts of COVID-19. In my 48 days on the job, I've built a robust budget around an equitable recovery, reopening, and renewal of Boston with proposed investments in small businesses, hard-hit industries, and job training so our residents can return to work. I invested $1.5 million into a vaccine equity grant initiative to create equitable access and break down barriers to receiving the vaccine for Boston's residents disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. I created a new rental relief fund with $50 million to help Boston residents at risk of losing their rental housing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Knowing that transparency is essential for building trust in our community, we are reimagining how we police in Boston with strategic investments, including $1 million to create the city's first ever Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, as well as $1 million for racial equity training for our police officers. There is so much more that I've done in just the short 50 days in office, and there is so much more I will do with fellow mayors across the country who are experiencing similar challenges in their cities. In the days, weeks, months, and years to come, I look forward to working together with you, prioritizing our people and our cities for an equitable recovery, reopening, and renewing. Thank you so much, and God bless.
It's an urgent issue. I'm glad that so many have opened their eyes to see how large this issue is. It's not just about the digital divide. It's not an isolated issue. This is about opportunity divide writ large. And like I said, it's definitely disproportionately affecting communities of color.
They're just struggling because, they don't have the broadband capability. They don't have the connectivity that they're needed. You're finding people having to go to, your local service areas or restaurants to try and pick up, Wi-Fi for the kids. So it's something this country is going to need to address. I think we're at the point now where we see that Wi-Fi is no longer a luxury. It's going to be a necessity for us to continue to grow and prosper.
When we think about what is the purpose of church, we look at important elements such as spiritual maturity and evangelism and certainly community. Those are things that are very, very important. But also you look at the commitment of service and also growth in individuals. So it's going to take us a real concerted effort to make sure that we not only embrace this new environment we have, but we are able to navigate and look at it as an opportunity and not a hindrance, because COVID-19 is going to be with us well into 2021 and maybe even beyond. We're still all new to this. We're still asking questions. I mean, it has made a big impact on all of the cities in our nation, but certainly even in our churches. Churches have been the mainstay to many communities because they are providing these touchless opportunities for people to come and get basic needs such as food and hygiene materials where they can come and pick them up and go home and take care of their families.
I try to allow my role as a first lady and what I'm seeing within the church to inform me as I do my job on Capitol Hill in lobbying and trying to help shape policy that's going to benefit my community, as well as, even being an HBCU graduate. I work with HBCUs as their representative on the Hill as well. And so because I have a direct understanding and experience with these institutions, which are so vital and important to our community, then that impacts how I go about doing my job.
We can and must, as leaders who are Black and are focused on marginalized communities, those in our community who don't have enough, we have to be on the alert for misuse of any technological tools. But we also want to be and have a history of being, on the forefront of determining where technology can go, where we can leverage technology in order to meet the needs of our community.
This whole conversation can't be at 30,000 feet just around data and tech, but you have to humanize that data in a way that it makes a very direct impact on people's lives, on how they build their businesses, on how we prepare people for jobs in the future, really in a laser-like way, addressing the challenges of equity that exist, certainly here in our republic, but across the globe.
That's why we're getting the outcomes that we're seeing across the country, because it is very difficult for you to advocate for yourself with people who just don't see you as a whole person, and unfortunately often as an equal and someone who deserves the respect that any of their patients deserve. So even if you have the same socioeconomics, because of our ethnicity and the way we're seen, there will continue to be different outcomes if we do not change this system.
I was trained in the late 90s, and my embryology teacher said that there were three races: Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negroid. So for many people, when you hear them talking about health disparities, the reason they think that they exist is because they believe in a biological basis of race, because that was taught in our textbooks to nurses, to doctors, to lay people for hundreds of years. And we know that there is no biological basis of race. That race is a social and political construct, not a biological one. So when you think about undoing the bias that's in our healthcare system, that means we must re-educate our providers, not just the ones that are currently in school, but the ones that are out currently taking care of patients.
We must work to fortify the pipeline for Black medical professionals by providing robust STEM education. You know, Hampton University is one of the leaders in providing students to go on to professional schools. We must provide funding for schools to train and retain medical professionals, and we must reduce student loan burden to encourage more community-based doctors and nurses.
The fact is that there is a disproportionate amount of testing in the minority communities. Part of that is because of the distrust that minorities have for the majority. Hampton University has the credibility. And if we can go out into these communities and provide that testing, and we're also trying to become someone that can provide the vaccine in those areas that I just mentioned, well, then we are doing a service. When I grew up, my mother and father told me that if you can do something to help somebody, that's one of the best things that anybody can do.
Hi, this is Paul Shala, founder and CEO of Delos and founder of our International Well Building Institute. We are the world's leading certification body for healthy buildings, and we look forward to discussing today the Well Health Safety Rating. This rating is being adopted broadly. Public buildings, large buildings, small buildings, corporate headquarters, schools, hospitals, restaurants, hotels. It's a third-party verification of health and safety protocols, and we very much look forward to sharing information with you today.
If you want to get back to your favorite places and feel confident they have put your health and safety first,
look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
I'm Dr. Richard Carmona. This is the Well Health Safety Seal from the International Well Building Institute, the global authority on healthy buildings.
The Well Health Safety Rating was informed by years of research and input from hundreds of leading virologists, public health experts, epidemiologists, and building professionals around the world.
The Well Health Safety Seal means that we'll feel better going into restaurants,
theaters, stores, hotels,
stadiums, and all the places that we love.
Everything may look the same, but the Well Health Safety Seal means that your health and safety are top of mind when it comes to
cleaning and sanitizing procedures,
air and water quality management,
emergency preparedness programs,
and health services.
So look for the Well Health Safety Seal outside
and feel more confident going inside. Learn more at wellhealthsafety.com.
Today we have Mayor Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, who has been gracious enough to join us and take some time here to talk about the Well Health Safety Rating. Columbia, South Carolina is in fact putting their public buildings through the Well rating and is on its way to achieving better health and safety protocols for all public buildings. Mayor Benjamin, it's great to be with you and interesting times indeed. Please let us know how you guys are doing and what you're seeing with regards to overall reopening, perhaps reopening of municipal buildings, and everything that entails.
Sure, no, Paul, thanks. It's always great to see you too. Not seeing some great media spread. I'm still trying to figure out how I missed the whole J-Lo piece and everything else. That's a whole other story. But no, we're doing well here, man. We're coming out of historic times, as you all know, and you all are helping us respond to it. The greatest pandemic since 1918, the greatest economic disruption around probably an election year since 1932. And the greatest, social unrest, around systemic issues of race and health, and all since 1968. So, as a microcosm of society, Columbia has been handling it pretty well, but transitioning back to whatever the new normal is what we've been focusing on here, and why I've been really excited about having this conversation.
Oh, likewise, and you're right. I mean, the convergence of racial equality issues, health equality issues, a global pandemic on top of that. I certainly commend leaders like yourselves for persisting through these and getting us back on track. What do you feel are the biggest obstacles, or even just the things to focus on here as we look at particularly buildings? As we know, buildings have been one of the largest carrier of a viral load like this, our indoor environment. And what do you feel are the things that are most important to focus on with regards to reopening?
What we've been excited about is obviously working with the International Well Building Institute as a pilot city, looking at how we step back into these public buildings that not only represent the places where our people, our employees work, but also represent the public realm. And so what are we doing to make sure that our police headquarters, our city hall, our courthouse, our primary administrative office building, and also our largest building that represents where most of our public work staff, the folks who really do the hard work at the city, making sure those places are safe. And again, we serve as leaders in the space that help us. It helps us really attack what I've always focused as the three primary foci of our administration and my leadership at the U.S. Council of Mayors, making smart investments in infrastructure, using innovation to drive those investments. And again, as we talk about the amazing disparities laid out by the pandemic over the last year, how you're thinking very inclusively as to how you attack these disparities in a thoughtful way. So making these investments in our buildings and our physical infrastructure representative of the public realm. I mean, it's just a really exciting opportunity. So, but so often public policy and public investment, it's often driven by anecdotes and not by good data, good science. And this is an opportunity to put the horse before the cart and actually make some demonstrable improvements in people's quality of life.
That's really well said. And Mayor Benjamin, you, your staff, and your city for that matter have shown great leadership going through the Well Health Safety Rating, looking at these public spaces, these common spaces, and to your point, taking an evidence-based approach. And that's really what the foundation of the International Well Building Institute has been, merging the health sciences with the building sciences. And we answered a calling last year to create this new designated rating as a subset of the full well building standard. But the Well Health Safety Rating is obviously a platform that can scale and that can be that symbol of confidence, and most specifically that symbol of a third-party verification of good practice, operational protocols, managerial protocols across an entire portfolio of buildings. And we look forward to having your city demonstrate the leadership it has in achieving the WELL rating for all public buildings. So it's been a wonderful collaboration to date. And, look, I think in the times ahead, hopefully we see this pandemic will come and go, and others will come and go, or other health safety issues. And perhaps you could speak of just the overall heightened awareness and the importance of a focus on these issues. If one good thing could come out of this is better policies and procedures going forward.
I was excited. I mean, obviously, you've been working on this for quite some time, and had an opportunity, along with some of my colleagues from Austin and Miami and other places, advance policy at the U.S. Conference of Mayors last year, a resolution fully supporting the idea that we should all have some uniform standards that we should all try to achieve, because I mean, just being really frank, I mean, as we had really tough discussions with our citizens last year and policymakers who may disagree with us, politically or what have you, it was very clear that that we had an economic crisis that was being driven by a public health crisis. And if in fact we did the things that we're supposed to do to make sure that either this never happens again, or if it does happen again, we're stepping into a brave new world. How are we most prepared to make sure that we stay focused on our one true north, which is the preservation of human life, the preservation of quality of life for our citizens, so taking a thoughtful, data-driven, evidence-driven, systems approach that helps all of us understand our respective roles. And again, ensuring that our buildings are healthy and safe, and they support the thriving, not only the economy, but also, again, I'm a mayor, so I'm focused on the public realm, the buildings that we occupy, and that provide services to the men and women, the families that we've focused on providing for. If we lead from the front, then I'm convinced that you'll see some really thoughtful public-private, intergovernmental, intersectoral partnerships that will emerge, and it will create a new normal that allows all of us to start thinking bigger and better about the way in which we operate. So I'm excited about this. It quite frankly, it raises the bar for everyone. And if we raise the bar around public health and our expectations, then it dramatically improves the quality of life for all of our citizens. I'll say one more thing. I feel like I'm talking too much.
Please, all day.
No, where we are right now, I believe we're in a global competition for talent, as well as a global pandemic. Oftentimes people think that we're in Columbia, South Carolina, we're competing with Charleston or Greenville. The reality is that on any given day, we're competing with Austin or Brisbane or Cape Town. And if in fact our citizens, I'm talking mostly to my mayors and other elected officials, governors as well, if our citizens see that we're making these thoughtful, strategic investments in quality of life, in building the cities that they want to live in someday, cities that share their values, then believe me, they'll make decisions. Okay, I want to be there because this is a type of city that I want to raise my family in. So this also goes into our global competition for talent. We want to build educated, entrepreneurial, talented, thriving, healthy cities. So this standard is something that we're not only going to achieve, we're going to protect it, we're going to relish it for years to come.
Excellent. You bring up so many good points with regards to, what better place to start than our public buildings. Our buildings are there to serve. And across the board, the nice thing about the WELL Health Safety Rating is it can be scaled and achieved across all building types, new or old, doesn't matter, big or small, doesn't matter. It focuses on consistent governance and practices of health and safety protocols for pathogen-related issues and a more a broad understanding of good practice. And to your point, lead with public buildings. That is the symbol to the folks that are served, the population, that a city is putting health and safety and health and wellness front and center. And that leads into the branding of a city, to your point. We've seen the International Well Building Institute programs proliferate now in over 80 countries, in fact, and the Well Health Safety Rating is now in over 70 of those, and really excited to see a leading city in the United States lead by example and demonstrate this commitment to its people. So thank you for the collaboration and the great words today.
Well, I'm so excited about it, and look forward to engaging again sometime in the future, my friend.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. We want to thank the AAMA for all their support and giving us this platform to speak about the Well Health Safety Rating, our International Well Building Institute, and looking forward to expanding this dialogue nationally.
Peace, AAMA. This is Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott. Peace, AAMA. This is Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, and I'm excited to welcome you to part 2 of this virtual conference. We all know being a mayor is a tough job, but being a black mayor is much tougher, especially at a time like this, when the entire world is at a reckoning point. From the need for police accountability, reimagining public safety, and to the impacts of the pandemic, and of course the growing inequities facing our communities. We, as proud members of the AMA, know firsthand how important it is to have opportunities like these to convene, learn from, and support our colleagues as black mayors across the country. The work that we do is not always easy, but it is always worth it. I wish you all the best and look forward to the remainder of the conference.
Thank you for that warm welcome and for beginning today's meeting, Mayor Scott. The work you are doing in Baltimore is impressive. Your leadership and tireless efforts to reduce gun violence and promote equity are making a profound difference. Thank you for your service. When I became the 8th president of the African American Mayors Association last year, I knew we would face challenges due to the coronavirus pandemic. Our communities were struggling, businesses were closing, people were dying, and our citizens were scared. The pandemic also exposed inequities that have existed in the healthcare system for decades. The African American Mayors Association provided mayors with tools and resources to leverage against the virus and amplified our voices on the national stage. When newly inaugurated Vice President Kamala Harris wanted to discuss the vaccine rollout and the disproportionate effects of COVID-19 on our communities of color, she reached out to AAMA. Our mayor spoke candidly with the Vice President, the White House COVID coordinator, and the chair of the Biden-Harris COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force. As our communities were working to save our residents during the pandemic, we were confronted with the murder of George Floyd and others. We never could have imagined that we would face 2 defining moments in history last year, both of which expose the underlying systemic racism that exists and creates disparities in every facet of our lives. Through AAMA, we have used our collective and powerful voice to demand change. We still have a great deal of work to do to achieve long-lasting policy change, but we have made strides through our tenacity and advocacy. When I became president, I spoke about AAMA's growth mindset, strategic initiatives, collaborative work, and bold ambition. I have had the honor of seeing these qualities firsthand over the past year. Our organization has provided a brave voice, speaking on behalf of those who are often overlooked and marginalized. We have advocated for the change that our nation needs to move forward. We worked diligently to ensure Black and Brown communities were heard at the polls and were counted in the census. We held open, honest discussions with the Biden-Harris administration, sharing challenges that affect our cities and country. We released a peace pact to reform policing nationwide. We launched a podcast to explore local leadership, cross-sector partnerships, and strategies to better our communities through the compound lens of racial inequity, equity, and inclusion. We pushed for increased funding for historically Black colleges and universities and celebrated incredible success in these pursuits, including a $100 million investment by the Bloomberg Foundation. We mourned after mass shootings and hate crimes and loudly proclaimed, we must do better. We advocated for the American Rescue Plan and the HEROES Act to provide the funding Americans needed to meet their basic needs. Now, I could go on highlighting the work of AAMA over the past year, but I will stop here and just say I am incredibly proud of the work we have done and the role we play on the national level. Thank you to my fellow mayors for your support. We have had tough conversations and laid the foundation for transformational change in our communities and across the nation. Thank you also to the outstanding AAMA staff. Your dedication has helped us adapt and respond. You have made AAMA a trusted partner to many and ensure the voices of Black and Brown communities are heard around the globe. I want to thank also my wife, Valerie. I know there were more late night and weekend Zoom calls and media interviews than she had imagined ever would be. Valerie, you continue to inspire me with your love and compassion. Thank you for traveling beside me on this journey. Serving as president of the African American Mayors Association has been one of the greatest honors of my career. Thank you for the trust you put in me. I will continue to work on behalf of this great organization to uplift our communities. I am excited and proud to pass the gavel to Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston. Mayor Turner is a leader, a change maker, and a good friend. Mayor Turner, congratulations on taking the helm. I look forward to your leadership and working with you to turn our vision of creating equitable, strong communities into a reality. Now, Mayor Turner, join me on the virtual stage as I administer the oath of office. Repeat after me. I, Sylvester Turner, do solemnly swear.
I, Sylvester Turner, do solemnly swear.
That I shall carry out my duties as president of the African American Association.
That I will carry out my duties as president of the African American Mayors Association.
To the best of my ability, so help me God.
To the best of my ability, so help me God.
With best wishes, I hereby pass the gavel of the AAMA presidency to Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston, Texas. Congratulations, President Turner.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Price, President Price. And look, I just want to start off by acknowledging and thanking you for your exceptional leadership over the last 12 months. These have been some very tough months. I don't care which city we may be the mayor of. Been highly challenging. We've not been able to meet in person, but I want to thank you. We have continued to work together as mayors under your leadership. You've brought us together. You've listed a number of those achievements, but I will say to everyone, those are not all of the achievements that have taken place under your leadership. And I too want to thank your wife, Valerie, because there have been a number of late night calls, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night to conduct the business of Aama. So Mayor Price, thank you so very much. And I know the other mayors would join with me in congratulating and thanking you for everything that you have done for Aama, and very much appreciate it. Look, I also want to take this opportunity to thank the executive board, all of the officers of Aama, the advisory board for their participation, and want to thank the Business Roundtable, Business Council for their support of this organization. I want to thank everyone for joining us at today's gavel ceremony and take part in the 2021 African American Mayors Association Conference. I have with me in the room the mayor of the city of Prairie View, Mayor Brian Rollins, the home of Prairie View A&M University, and I want to thank him for being present with me today. I appreciate all the individuals who continue to support this organization through your membership and your contributions. And I certainly want to acknowledge the Aama staff, as President Price just did. I want to thank the staff for their tireless work, for everything that they have done and continue to do. And as president of Aama, I look forward to working very closely with the staff, very talented, and we should all be very proud of the work they have done. And certainly this year's conference theme resonates because as an organization, we are moving forward together in our mayor's vision for resilient communities. From the year I became mayor nearly 6 years ago, I valued my membership with the African American Mayors Association. And regardless of the size or the geography of our cities, mayors are responsible for public safety, the garbage pickup, the quality of the water, the potholes, the neighborhood parks, and responding to the changing weather conditions. We are the boots on the ground. We are the ones that are closest to the people in our areas. And they see us in their neighborhoods, they see us at the grocery stores, they see us at the barber shops. We are constantly in communication with them. And more specifically, we are concerned about what is happening on that street, in that neighborhood. And for those of us who are African American mayors, our charge consists of all of the above and so much more. Our presence indicates the progress we have made, and our constituents expect us to make a positive difference in their lives. In fact, they expect us to respond very quickly and impactful to the things that have been overlooked for decades. For many of us, we come from neighborhoods that have been underserved or under-resourced for decades. Communities that have been begging for affordable housing, or quite frankly, mixed income housing, quality neighborhood parks and green space, quality grocery stores, business and job opportunities, good neighborhood schools and infrastructure. There are many communities and neighborhoods that have been begging for things that other people simply take for granted, but we have been fighting for a very long time. The people in these communities want substantial more investment that will revitalize and transform their neighborhoods and invariably reduce the stress within their communities that prompt a greater police presence. These resources or investments must come from the federal, state, and local governments and the private and nonprofit sector. At the same time, as mayors, we must serve everyone in our city. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter their socioeconomic status, it doesn't matter their faith, it doesn't matter their age, their orientation. We have the responsibility of serving everyone within our cities. And if there was ever a time when all Black mayors are to be affiliated with Aama, quite frankly, that time is right now. Not just to enhance Aama's statute, but to amplify the voices of the people in our respective cities, and especially those voices of color, to magnify our ocular presence, that the struggles of our past are yielding dividends today, and we are mindful of the sacrifices that others have made. That's one of the reasons why we should come together. Whether you're from rural America or from urban cities, whether you're from the East Coast, West Coast, North or South, it's important for Black mayors to come together and to meet as with one another. Should we be members of the U.S. Conference of Mayors? Yes. The U.S. Climate Mayors? Absolutely. The National League of Cities? Yes. Regardless of the makeup of our cities or geography, mayors who are African Americans are bound by history, ancestry, circumstances, and societal pressures and perceptions. And as we participate and navigate with other conferences and associations, we should also invest some of our time and some of our resources with our own. Like it or not, we are inextricably connected, and in the humblest way I know how, I am asking mayors who happen to be African Americans to come and be members and be supportive and engaged with Aama, the African American Mayors Association. Together, we must fight against those forces seeking to restrict and suppress people's access to the voting booth. And while they are seeking to do that, as mayors, our collective voices must be heard, encouraging people to register to vote and urging the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate to extend the Voting Rights Act and protect people's right to vote. We must insist on the passage of the George Floyd Policing Act and the American Jobs Plan. and be at the table when leaders are discussing infrastructure, resilience, and climate strategies. Aama, the African American Mayors Association, should expand and strengthen our network with other African American professional organizations, fraternal groups, civil rights groups, and business organizations. And lastly, we must be supportive of each other. The last 14 months have been taxing on multiple levels, and there will be challenges ahead. But relying on one another, we will work together to represent the people we serve. And I am looking forward to working with each and every one of you as we move forward. Again, let me thank Mayor Price. Let me thank the board, the officers, the business council, the advisory board, and so many others for bringing this organization to this point in time. And now, at this time, I would like to welcome Mayor Greg Fisher from Louisville, Kentucky, who is the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and someone who has been just a close friend and a mentor of mine ever since I became mayor. Mayor, Mr. President, Greg Fisher.
Mr. President, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to address your great organization here. First, I want to say congratulations to Mayor Price. What a tough year that you've been through this past year, and you've led with great dignity and courage. We appreciate that. And of course, Mayor Sylvester Turner, great colleague and great friend. Want to congratulate you on this wonderful honor that you have here today. I've had the honor of working with Mayor Turner in many capacities, including the work that we do through the United States Conference of Mayors, where Mayor Turner is a trustee and a leader, as we all know, of extraordinary vision and dedication, humility, compassion. We can go on and on about Sylvester. He gets a little embarrassed, but as Muhammad Ali said, from my great hometown of Louisville, he said, "It ain't bragging if it's true." So Mayor Turner's got it going on. I appreciate that very, very much. He's shown us what it means to balance economic growth, equity, police reform, sustainability, and more. We all know that our jobs as mayors right now, there's a lot going on. One of these keynote times that we've all seen over this past year and had in our cities, Houston had it, when Mayor Turner provided great comfort to the people of Houston and America during George Floyd's homegoing. And he offers this type of leadership I believe that our country needs right now. And I congratulate him on his new role as president of the conference. So we know as mayors, we got a lot to do these days. We're seeing our economy suffering, although it's coming back, addressing still COVID-19, reimagining public safety, and of course, advancing racial equity, which overlaps with all these challenges we face as a nation. And when I talk about leading racial equity, you know, it's a lot different when I say that as a white guy and a white mayor, as opposed to the work that you all do as black mayors leaning into this challenge as well. But we're unified in a common thread when we do this work. But I've got to face the reality that, you know, my skin color has given me certain advantages over my life that many of you all have not been afforded. And that's the type of work that we're doing and I'm doing here to make sure that the skin color, in fact, is not an indicator of success in our country. When we went through COVID and went through the demonstrations together, it's nothing new. Those challenges once again expose the gaps in health, economy, justice system when it comes to racial equity in America. So the question is, are we going to get it right this time? And I believe it is America's time to get it right, and it's our time to lead. Unlike in the 60s, when the Kerner Commission was finished and predicted that unless we address these issues of discrimination and injustice, there will be two Americans, wholly separate and wholly unequal. Well, white America looked the other way. It's our job, and particularly jobs of people that look like me, to not look the other way right now and make sure that we learn from those terrible mistakes of the civil rights movement in 1968, when America did not respond up to the promise we have as a nation. So we do that city by city. My city became a focal point in the racial justice movement, tragically, because of the death of Breonna Taylor, which roiled our city and the country in many different ways. And our city now is emerging stronger than ever. But when I sit down with Tamika Palmer, Breonna's mom, it just breaks your heart that a life had to be lost, a child had to be lost as a result of this movement that's taken place in our country. So it's our job to make sure that we're making it better. And I know as mayors on this group, I know many of y'all, we're not just talking, we're acting. As I always said, I'm not watching the lips, I'm watching the hips. You know, let's get it going hard and do something. What we're doing here aligns with your all's peace pact, which I really commend you on. And we need to be shouting from the mountaintops to make sure we're getting the type of reforms we need through what you're all talking about. Transparency, police contract negotiations, which we're in the middle of right now, advocating for federal policy change. We all know the big money comes from Washington. We can try reform at our local levels, but we need big resources to make big reform. And that involves community engagement. Police community legitimacy is at the heart of all this. And the only people that can say it's legitimate is the community. And then, of course, enacting budgets to put all this together for a co-production of public safety. So I'm hoping with the Biden administration now, we got a chance to get it right, to come up with new approaches toward public safety. I've read a really interesting article in the Washington Post, and I'll close with this here in a second. They kind of put this in perspective of the work that we've got to do as mayors. It talked about public safety, and it said we should think about public safety the way that we think about public health. No one would suggest that hospitals alone can keep a population healthy, no matter how well run they might be. A healthy community needs neighborhood clinics, health education, parks, environments free of toxins, government policies that protect the public during health emergencies, and so much more. Health isn't just about hospitals, and safety is not just about the police. So a couple of things in there, right? It takes a whole of government approach. And I know a bunch of us are going through some challenges right now with increased gun violence and homicides. And a lot of our citizens just say, what are you doing? Well, we can never give up. Just like a hospital can't give up. They lose lives every day, unfortunately. But they work together, they do more research, and they say, let's get back after it. And I know that's what we're doing in our cities as well. So we got some new funding announced yesterday, as we all know. It should be in our bank accounts today or tomorrow from the American Rescue Plan. And hopefully those funds, along with, I hope, American Jobs Plan and American Family Plan, that we're going to get the type of resources to make historic progress in the areas like racial justice and equity, which in turn leads to safer, healthier neighborhoods in all of our cities. So let's get it right this time. I guarantee you, with every fiber in my body, I'll be fighting about it to my last breath, and I know you all will be as well as the United States Conference of Mayors. So that's our challenge and our opportunity. I'm grateful to have your all's partnership, to have Mayor Turner at the helm. Mayor Price, thank you again for your good work. And on behalf of the United States Conference of Mayors, you have mine and our organization's commitment as well to work side by side, shoulder to shoulder with you all as we go through this journey. But let's go for breakthrough progress this time. So I'd like to invite every mayor taking part in this call today to join us next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 4 p.m., where we will have a Reimagining Public Safety virtual summit to lay out the best practices to produce the safest possible conditions in our city. So we'll get into all these issues and talk about best practices and innovative ideas to help us move forward together. Please join us and reach out to the team at U.S. Conference of Mayors if we can be of any help at all to any of your cities. So thanks again, and congratulations again on the outstanding selection of Houston's mayor, Mayor Sylvester Turner, as your next president. Mayor Turner, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. President, and again, thank you for your incredible leadership. Look forward to continuing to work with you. We'll be there next week when you convene us again. And look, working together with the U.S. Congress of Mayors, Aama, and the U.S. Congress of Mayors, we can make a tremendous difference. So again, thank you so very much, and look forward to working with you as we move forward.
Hello, I'm Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and it's my honor to welcome you to the African American Mayors Association 2021 Virtual Annual Conference. What a relevant theme. Forward together, Mayor's vision for resilient communities. We know that the last year's tested us in ways that we could not imagine, but in so many ways it's brought us closer together. And thanks to the African American Mayors Association and our partners across the country, our communities are still standing, and we are turning the corner on this global pandemic. And in so many ways, we are beginning to thrive again. So I look forward to this conference, as I know all of you all do. And while we can't be together in person, I know that these virtual sessions will give us even more tools to make sure that our communities are empowered and continue to be resilient. Thank you for joining us, and I trust that you will enjoy this conference as much as I will.
Broadband is more important now than it's ever been. But too many Americans, especially during COVID-19, struggle to afford it. Some people can't access broadband because it's not available where they live. Others lack the digital literacy skills needed to function online. That means they can't work from home, their kids can't participate in virtual learning, and their parents can't access telehealth. We can and should do better. Our country has to commit to connecting more Americans. We need meaningful national policies to close the digital divide and connect communities across the country. Some government programs have worked to expand access or provide emergency broadband support, but those programs don't go far enough. We believe it's time for Congress to take even bolder steps to accelerate America by funding broadband connectivity in a way that gives Americans more choices and more resources, even after the pandemic subsides. By creating new federally funded broadband programs to get more Americans connected, Congress can help working families, strengthen rural America, and build a more robust and resilient economy. Learn more at verizon.com/acceleratingamerica.
Hello, my name is Michelle Kober, and I am Director of External Affairs and Strategic Alliances at Verizon. Thank you to the African American Mayors Association for having me. I am honored to be in the company of such amazing leaders. Verizon is a proud sponsor and supporter of the African American Mayors Association, and we are happy to participate in the 2021 annual conference. The theme of this year's conference, Forward Together, Mayor's Vision for Resilient Communities, is exactly what we need as we continue to navigate what has become our new normal. This past year has been incredibly challenging, and mayors across the country have been on the front lines fighting for what is best for their communities. They have seen firsthand the pressing needs that the pandemic has brought to the forefront, from the health and economic crisis to systemic racism, to educational needs. Our mayors have been doing the work to help the nation rebound better and stronger than before. At Verizon, we are also doing the work to help the nation rebound better and stronger. We are doubling down on our commitment to social justice and closing the digital divide. We recently announced, as part of our Citizen Verizon program, an investment to help vulnerable communities that will exceed $3 billion by 2025. This program will include a partnership with the National 4-H Council aimed at bringing digital skills training to rural communities, Verizon Innovative Learning STEM programs for young men of color and rural young women, and starting on May 12th, the day after this conference, we will begin participating in the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program to help low-income consumers get connected. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that technology and connectivity is critical, as shown by the need for the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. That is why we are calling on Congress to establish a new long-term benefit program that will give low-income families a subsidy of $20 to $50 a month for broadband and for digital literacy training. I'm thrilled to be here today to speak about this topic and others with Mayor Shawn Patterson Howard of Mount Vernon, New York. Mayor Patterson Howard, like so many of you watching this, has been hard at work every day to ensure that her community is safe, secure, and healthy. Mayor Patterson Howard was born and raised in the city that she serves and is a proud graduate of Howard University, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and Hunter College. Mayor Patterson, thank you so much for speaking with me today for this fireside chat.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I'm just really excited to be here as a proud member of the Board of Trustees for the African American Mayors Association. I want to thank President McKinley also for this opportunity. As you stated, African American mayors have been on the front line as all mayors, but we understand that our communities oftentimes have been under-resourced, and we started much further behind the starting line. And so COVID impacted us, but we are, as you said, building back better, and we are focused on building back better as we move forward together, working to build resilient communities.
So what is your vision for a resilient Mount Vernon for the rest of 2021?
A resilient Mount Vernon for the rest of 2021 is going to have to focus on a few areas: supporting our residents, supporting our businesses, ensuring that our economy is strong, ensuring that we have accessibility to broadband services, and making sure that we have strong health care in place, and of course, public safety.
So there's so much to unpack there, Mayor Patterson Howard. I mean, the digital divide, that's also a key priority for Verizon, is figuring out ways to bridge the digital divide. And earlier this year, we released a white paper called Accelerating America that outlines our proposal for how we can finally close the digital divide. And the centerpiece of our plan is a proposal to deal with the affordability challenge facing vulnerable communities. And we have proposed that the government enhance and increase the support it provides to low-income consumers by providing them with a federally funded broadband subsidies. But there are many reasons that people don't adopt broadband, including the lack of digital literacy skills, access to networks, and what we just talked about in terms of cost. How do you think about the digital divide? And what do you think leaders in the public and private sector can do to help get communities, lower income communities, and those who are vulnerable connected to broadband?
So the digital divide in our communities is very real. We knew that there were fault lines in our system, but COVID exposed how deep these fault lines were. As people are thinking about their primary needs, oftentimes housing, food, clothing, transportation are at the top of their mind. And they didn't always think about, people thought about cable, but they didn't always think about broadband and being able to access the internet. But when the children were home from school and remote learning became the only option, when working from home is the only way that you were able to take care of yourself, when people were on pause and they were ordering food to be delivered to their house, and even doing their shopping, their major shopping and grocery shopping online, the speed of their internet, the stability of their internet became a major concern.
This conversation is really timely because this conversation is going to air on May 11th, and on May 12th, the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program will begin, and families can begin to sign up, if they are eligible, to receive the Emergency Broadband Benefit. And the first disbursements are expected to happen on June 1st. So for those of you watching, mayors, it's important to get the word out, because this is a very important benefit that we know is necessary for many people in your communities. And one other key area that you mentioned was small businesses, and small businesses having the support that they need. Can you tell us about the business community in Mount Vernon, which I believe you said are mostly small businesses?
Yes. So the business community in Mount Vernon is comprised really about 80% of small business retailers, restaurants, hair shops. The support of small businesses are critical, and ensuring that small businesses have the proper access to broadband services so that they could have an online presence, which is becoming more and more important as we go forward, is going to be critical. So we have to ensure that our small businesses are skilling up their labor force and increasing accessibility to purchasing their wares on an online platform.
The small business support is important to Verizon as well. We provided over 700 small businesses grants last year to help meet payroll, pay rent, address the immediate needs through Verizon Small Business Recovery Fund. And we recognize that in communities like yours and others all across the country, that small businesses are really the backbone of many communities. And they are also a major part of the African American community. Of the small business grantees that Verizon supported last year, 90% were minority owned, including 44% by African Americans. Along the lines of economic development, another focus of yours has been workforce development and making sure that your community is ready for the jobs of the future. That is something Verizon is also committed to. Tell us how you're working with your corporate partners and your community to help them get ready for the next generation of jobs.
So we're working with our corporate partners to ensure that not only our young people, but our adults and some of our aging community have opportunities for job placement and workforce development.
Another area that you are passionate about is criminal justice reform, and Verizon shares that passion. You graduated from John Jay College with a criminal justice focus. And we are active in this area and have expanded our pro bono legal program to include work on expungements and resentencing for juveniles and other juvenile justice issues. Verizon has hosted events with thought leaders in the criminal justice reform space, and we've supported legislation at the state and local level relating to various issues related to arrest and incarceration. I know this is an issue that is important to you, Mayor Patterson Howard, and how have you been addressing criminal justice reform issues in your community, and how can your corporate partners be helpful in that effort?
Absolutely. I mean, criminal justice reform is about creating opportunities for an air, land, and sea approach to public safety. And that's prevention, intervention, and restorative justice. But then we're also working to reform our police department. And so we've had a civilian and community reform board that has decided to put together a citizen complaint review board. We are expanding our civilian police academy where residents can go through an 8-week course and learn more about policing and do drive-throughs in the community, helping people to understand how decisions are made within policing, being very transparent if there have been uses of force. There's a difference between use of force and abuse of force. And the community can only know the difference if you educate them and you teach them about the escalation of force. So we've been providing retraining opportunities for our police officers. We've been changing our policies and procedures to ensure that our police officers are not standing by if something is being done wrong. We are providing more mental and emotional wellness opportunities for our police officers to ensure that we're only sending emotionally healthy people out in the community.
It's been a really tough year or more, especially following the murder of George Floyd and the reckoning with the systemic racism. And Verizon has leaned in and is tackling systemic racism and removing barriers to opportunity through programs and internal efforts that we have launched over the last year. How have you addressed this issue with your very diverse community in Mount Vernon?
So what we've done here in Mount Vernon, and some of these efforts have really been led by our police department, is we've had a forum we call Community Conversations. So we've had those hard conversations. On June 2nd, on the steps of City Hall, it was our city government, our police department that partnered with some of our youth leaders in the community, and we held the I Can't Breathe rally, where we had several thousand people on City Hall Plaza pouring out into the streets and into the business district. And we led with our young activists the I Can't Breathe rally, where we spoke about policing, where we spoke about racial injustice, where we spoke about inequity. This is something that our government, our corporate, our elected, our business leaders, we have to lead these conversations. Like they said, those who know the way have to show the way.
I think that was one bright spot that came out of last year, was the ability and the environment to have conversations that we have not been able to have before. And speaking of bright spots, there were so many heavy topics that we covered today and so many challenges that we faced. But what are some of the good things that are happening in Mount Vernon and things that you are hopeful about for the rest of the year?
Good things that are happening in Mount Vernon right now is really that our community is coming together across sectors and learning how to collaborate. And so I know that the theme for this year's conference is Forward Together, but that was my campaign theme in 2019 in the general election, is Forward Together. You can't conquer what you can't divide. And so when you bring civic, not-for-profit, government, business together and the faith community together we can work on very entrenched and systemic problems that we've seen in our community.
Forward Together seems to be a very common theme. It's the theme of the Aama conference this year. It was the theme of your campaign, and it is also a theme of Verizon. Forward Together, we build the networks that move the world forward. So I think that we all share that common thread of moving forward together, because we obviously cannot rebuild back better alone. Mayor Patterson Howard, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of the 2021 Aama Annual Conference.
Well, welcome everyone to our discussion about climate risk and best practices for achieving resiliency. Thank you to the African American Mayors Association for hosting us today. My name is Geneviève Pichet. I lead Wells Fargo's Environmental, Social, and Governance Solutions Group, and I'm based in the verdant city of Charlotte, North Carolina. I am joined today by three wonderful panelists. So let's introduce them now. First, we have Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner. Elected in December of 2015 and re-elected in December 2019, Sylvester Turner is serving his second four-year term as Houston's 62nd mayor. He is board chair of Resilient Cities Network and chair of Climate Mayors, and as of today is the new president of the African American Mayors Association. Congratulations, Mayor Turner, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. We also have Paula DePerna. Paula is a special advisor to CDP North America, which was formerly known as the Carbon Disclosure Project. Paula is a pioneer of strategic global environmental and philanthropic policy and a widely published author. She led the development of carbon markets when she served as the president of the Chicago Climate Exchange, the world's first cap and trade system for greenhouse gases. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and hello, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, Paula. Good to be with you.
And finally, we have Brenda Mallory, chair of the Council on Environmental Policy, or the CEQ, for the Executive Office of the President and the White House. Chair Mallory is the 12th chair of the CEQ and the first African-American woman to serve in this role. As chair, she's the primary advisor to the president on environmental and natural resource policies and is particularly focused on environmental justice and climate change issues. Previously, she served as the general counsel at CEQ and in a number of senior roles at the Environmental Protection Agency for over 20 years. She's helped shape many of President Obama's signature environmental and natural
Thank you for that
resource
introduction.
policies.
That's a pleasure to be here today.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, so let's dive in. We'll start with a bit of a personal question, and I'll turn this one to you, Mayor Turner. You're deeply committed to supporting communities and advancing quality of life. At what point did it become apparent to you the extent to which climate change was going to impact your professional life?
Well, even before I became mayor, for example, I'm a native Houstonian. I saw the storms coming with greater frequency. It was Rita, I think, in 2005, Hurricane Ike in 2008, the Memorial Day flood in 2015, the Tax Day flood in April of 2016, Harvey in 2017, Tropical Storm Imelda in 2019, the winter storm in February of this year. So the storms have been coming with greater frequency and greater intensity. And it dawned on me something is wrong, something is happening out there. The planet is getting warmer. We are just, the greenhouse gas emissions are increasing, they're not reducing, and it's having a direct impact not only on the environment, but on the constituents that I served as a member of the Texas legislature and now as mayor.
Wonderful, thank you. And how about you, Paula? When did you realize that climate change is going to impact your professional life?
Well, that's a blast from the past. You know, my writing career started completely blind to all of this, and I threw my hat in the ring to work for Jacques Cousteau, who you may remember was the inventor of the aqualung and basically a pioneer of oceans exploration. And it was working with him. I mean, to realize the interaction of all this. And I mean, I've even been to Nauru, which is an island on the equator, 3,000 miles from any landmass. And in 1999, we could see the bleaching of the coral there. You could see it was completely coated with the kind of mucousy fungus. And so, you know, it's been part of my professional life really from the beginning. But it was an accident at first.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. How about you, Chair Mallory?
Yeah, I guess I would say I started working in the federal government in about 2000, and I was at the Environmental Protection Agency. And so the presence of climate change as an issue, even if an issue that wasn't getting attention or that there were arguments about whether or not it should get attention, was there, I would say, even from those early years. But as time went on, more and more focus obviously has increased on climate change because of the impacts that it is having in our day-to-day lives. And my role and my engagement around those issues sort of increased with that development as well. So I would say it's from the federal government experience, it's been there from the beginning, but different levels of importance.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So we'll jump into the crux of our conversation here. So in the last month or so, there have been important announcements led by the Biden administration, including the American Jobs Plan and the goal to reduce U.S. emissions by 50% by 2030. Chair Mallory, if we could start with you, can you give us your perspective on how the American Jobs Plan will intersect with cities, particularly with regards to addressing the impact of climate change?
Yes, so thank you so much for that question, just to give us a chance to jump into the American Jobs Plan, which is, I think, historic in its breadth. But first of all, let me just thank the African American Mayors Association for inviting me to participate, and to congratulate Mayor Turner for his new role as the president. Obviously, an expression of the value that this organization holds in the work that he's been doing for years. And I also want to thank everyone who's here today, participating and focusing on this panel. The work that you all are leading at the state level and local level is vital to our ability to create resilient cities and address climate change. Your understanding and experience dealing with the compounding challenges presented by each extreme weather event makes you an invaluable partner for the federal government as we strive to expand our role in addressing the needs of communities. So I look forward to working with you on this journey, those on the panel and beyond. Turning to your question, I think one thing I'll just start with thinking about the audience that we have here. There's no question that in the last that if I ask someone in the audience, in the last 5 years, like how much have extreme weather events affected or impacted the community that you serve, that everyone in the room could raise their hand for different ways in which particular storms have impacted their lives, storms and other things as well. And we just heard Mayor Turner run down the list of storms that he has kind of off the top of his head, can just sort of recite that have impacted him. But you know, the recent occurrence of the horrific winter storm that Mayor Turner and all of those in Texas experienced earlier this year is a fresh example. Around the same time, communities in Alexandria, Lake Charles, and Shreveport, Louisiana were enduring their own crisis caused by freezing temperatures, bursting pipes, and the inaccessibility of clean water. But it's not just freezing temperatures. We can point to the devastating wildfire season out west last year, or the unprecedented flooding in the Midwest in 2019. So, you know, climate change and the extreme weather events it fuels is impacting all of us. And we need bold action. That's what the American Jobs Plan is. The American Jobs Plan is a $2 trillion infrastructure plan that will create good jobs, help us tackle climate change, and bolster infrastructure investment, especially at the local level. We know as a nation that many of the climate-related impacts that we need to address are occurring at the local level. It's your cities and towns that are experiencing the repeated extreme weather events and suffering from the effects of the changing climate. The American Jobs Plan calls for $50 billion in dedicated investments to improve infrastructure resiliency against climate change through things like targeted investments to support infrastructure in overburdened and underserved communities, including programs like FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, or HUD's Community Development Block Grant program. It also includes investing in and restoring nature-based infrastructure, which includes our forest and coastal and ocean resources as well. This will help prevent flooding in our cities and reduce wildfires devastating our local communities. And then I'll also mention the development of the Civilian Climate Corps. This is a $10 billion investment that will put a diverse generation of Americans to work conserving our public lands and waters, starting at the local level. Finally, the American Jobs Plan seeks to empower local leaders to reshape restoration and resilience projects so that we are learning from the work that you're all doing. So there are a number of ways in which we're envisioning that the American Jobs Plan can work if that funding comes through. So I'll stop there.
Great. And Mayor Turner, how do you feel the federal administration priorities, many of which are articulated in the American Jobs Plan, how do they intersect with the priorities in Houston?
Well, and number one, let me just say I'm excited about the American Jobs Plan. Okay, I'm excited. I do, and before I go any further, and I apologize. Let me thank Wells Fargo for hosting. You know, I really appreciate that on behalf of Aama. So let me number one, let me thank Wells Fargo. So yeah, thank you so very much. And then of course to Brenda and to Paula for being a part. I'm honored to be a part. But let me just say, let's say a year ago, you know, we didn't have a trusted partner, you know, in the White House. And so in February of last year, the city of Houston passed this Resilient Houston strategies. On Earth Day last year, we passed our climate action plan. But in the absence of a federal mandate or partner, or even in Texas on a state level, we had to pretty much go it alone. And so we had to work with our stakeholders and our partnership locally. We are the energy capital of the world, and we have had to work with the energy sector in order to really give meaning to our climate action plan. So we are the energy capital of the world, but we're seeking to lead an energy transition. And then at the same time, there are a number of initiatives that are called for within our climate action plan, dealing with electrifying our public as well as our private fleet, creating 50 2.0 clean energy companies, planting 4.6 million trees by 2030. There are a number of things that we have identified that we can do to adhere to the Paris Agreement. And so, but in the absence of a federal partner on this support, it would have been very difficult for us to even revitalize and transform communities that have been underserved and under-resourced that are constantly impacted by these extreme weather conditions. What the American Jobs Plan does for the city of Houston, for example, is that it helps us to accelerate what we have on our books, but not necessarily didn't have all the support that we needed in order to move it forward. So when you start talking about a focus on renewables, building infrastructure, those plans, the American Jobs Plan, align very well with our Resilient Houston strategy and our climate action plan. When you start talking about helping marginalized communities, that equity piece, that's huge. And I want to thank the Biden administration for really focusing on that and making that a prime priority, where 40% of many of its resources are going to these targeted communities, as Brenda indicated. That is a huge piece, because when you start talking about the air you breathe, the land, the water, for many communities of color, they've been impacted by these elements for decades. Just like in the city of Houston, There's a 240-acre landfill that opened up in the 1930s, closed in 1970, been dormant for 50 years, contaminated space, holding down that low-income community for 50 years. We are now reimagining that and looking at turning that into the largest urban solar farm in the country, generating enough power to power 5,000 homes, offsetting greenhouse gas emissions by 120 million pounds annually, a $70 million investment in that community, revitalizing, transforming, and uplifting. And because of the American Jobs Plan and what the Biden-Harris administration is doing, we can help to make that even a reality. So I can go on and on, but let me tell you, on behalf of not just the city of Houston, but every mayor that's a part of Aama, every mayor that's even a part of U.S. Conference of Mayors, I head the U.S. Climate Mayors. We are excited about having the American Jobs Plan that aligns perfectly with the local initiatives that we are planning, and now we can accelerate and get it done. So thank you, Brenda, and thank you for your entire team. Look forward to working with you.
Gosh, you know, you are inspiring to listen to, and your leadership has been evident, and it is just wonderful to see how the support from the American Jobs Plan will just put more wind in your sails. So thank you for that. It's awesome to hear. And you know, I think that the goals and the vision that we have set for our communities and for reducing emissions does pose an interesting question for you, Paula, that I'd love to direct to you, which is, you know, it seems to present a new urgency around the tracking of environmental and social data, doesn't it? You know, what should cities be thinking about in this respect, and how do they tackle the quantitative aspects to help drive decision making? Oh, you're on mute, Paula. Oh, you're still muted.
Oh,
there we go. You're good.
Okay. Am I good now?
Yes.
You're good.
Sorry about that. In these days of COVID, I guess we have to have a little courtesy cushion there, thanks to the lab. Anyway, I just was starting to add my thanks first to the African American Mayors Association for having me and for your leadership, Mayor Turner. I'm a frustrated mayor, and you are inspiring, and the cities are where the rubber meets the road, and that's where you got to talk to people, and they have to like you, and that's how you get stuff done. So thank you.
Thank you.
And also Chair Mallory for your leadership and strong career in all these issues, legal aspects of EPA, and Genevieve, personally to you for supporting Matchmaker, particularly CDP Matchmaker, which I will put on the plate for Ms. Mallory and Mayor Turner as a focal tool that we can talk about later to help you spend that American Jobs Plan intention. I think we can be very helpful there. But to the question, you know, I think what brings, first of all, the data together, it is a quantitative approach, and every city probably has an inventory. We have 700 cities globally disclosing to the Carbon Disclosure Cities program, about 165, 170 in the US alone. And they all have inventories, and they're all counting data, and they pretty much know what their, quote, carbon budget is. But what we find now is, I think what brings the environment and social data together, first of all, is racial equity and environmental justice, but also as a subset for all of us, the unpredictability of climate change. Prior to COVID-19, there was a very impressive and frightening study that many American households did not have $500 cash in the bank to meet an unexpected expense. Now, when you add COVID and then you add climate change, which is a slow burn, it's all about families having an unpredictability that rises all the time. And I just heard an interview with a grapefruit farmer in Texas, actually, Mayor Turner, who said that his insurance policy after this big storm, his deductible was such that he couldn't even trigger the policy. He didn't even get the benefit of his insurance. That's how high the risk was. So the bringing together of environmental and social data has to remedy that unpredictability. And I think that's the number one priority for cities. It's not so much 1,000 tons here and 1,000 tons there, but how can we insulate our people from the unpredictability of the climate change problem? What do the data lead us to? And then, of course, when we get back to infrastructure, which I know we'll talk about further, you know, these horrible examples of highways cutting through neighborhoods and toxic landfills being the backyard of children growing up. I mean, all of that really is also a top priority, to get rid of all of that, clean it up. And the exciting thing about the American Jobs Plan, I would say, is the second word, jobs. You know, jobs creation is central to dealing with climate change. It's the biggest jobs creation opportunity we've ever had in this generation, or the one before and probably the one next. And it's about livability. So the focus on jobs, the focus on infrastructure, and bringing in the social dimension to environmental issues is absolutely a breakthrough that we've needed for a long time, since I was diving in Nauru. True.
Well, that's great. And the jobs piece is one that we can continue to discuss, because I agree it's a very important theme in all of this. But, you know, to connect back to sort of the infrastructure piece, which Paula, you mentioned, you know, this is a pretty ambitious plan, and achieving the emissions reductions goals they're going to require capital from all kinds of different places. And you know, obviously at Wells Fargo, we're really focused on finding ways to provide unique financing to make the transition happen. And it seems like cities may increasingly need partnerships with the private sector. And Mayor Turner, in Texas, you know, public-private partnerships are critical. They are today. So can you give us your thoughts about, and perhaps an example of effective public-private collaboration, and what have been the outcomes?
Well, let me just say, with the issues that we are facing today, either we go big or we go home. That's what we say in Houston. You either go big or you go home. This is not the time to be incrementalist, and the little you do, nobody can see it. This is the time to be transformational. So either you want to save people and be holistic, or you want to maintain the status quo and we all lose. Because the storms don't stop because we choose to go small. Okay, they just keep coming. In terms of how do we get it done, you can't do it without the public-private partnerships. Our Resilient Houston strategy that we put in place in February, I will tell you, that was underwritten by Shell. The climate action plan that we put forth on Earth today, believe it or not, that was underwritten by CenterPoint, one of our utilities. The Evolve Houston, electrifying our fleet by 30%, both public and private, by 2030. That's a part of what we call my Evolve Houston initiative that we started 2 years ago with Shell, NRG, CenterPoint, and University of Houston, with all of them focusing on electrifying our fleet. And that requires with the private sector. With regards to getting almost 86 million cars off the road, that's our high-speed train with the Texas Central Railroads. That's a private initiative in large part. That will save us from purchasing 1.2 billion gallons of gasoline, removing 15,000 cars off our interstate daily, 86 million across the board. So that's huge. Those are public-private initiatives. And when you combine that with the American Jobs Plan, which takes a holistic approach, look, we're on the verge of really engaging in true transformation, something that this country hasn't seen in decades, but something that's desperately needed right now. So the public-private, look, and everybody has to have some skin in this game, okay, everybody. And that's why in Houston, let me just say, the energy capital of the world, I'm very proud of it. We don't run away from our energy sector, but we are encouraging them to move forward. And so we want to lead now in energy transition, okay? So the public, the private sector, working with the American Jobs Plan, I think we are moving now in the right direction. And I don't want to include Wells Fargo has been a big help with this. But when it comes to housing and affordability of housing and building these houses in the right places, all of that's a critical piece, because you don't eliminate the food security without having the rooftops. So everybody has a role to play.
Exactly. We'll cover off on the affordable housing point a little bit later on, because I think that's a really important one. But this might be also a good opportunity to reconnect to Paula, your comment about the Matchmaker program, which is something that Wells Fargo has supported for the last 3 years, with really the intent of helping us understand how we can deploy more financing towards green and resiliency projects. So Paula, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that program and key opportunities and insights for everyone here.
Yeah, and thank you again for the visionary support, because Matchmaker really is a map of trending very, very specific existing infrastructure needs in the country, city by city, from tiny little cities to large cities. And it's a subset of our disclosure platform, where we ask cities, as I said, hundreds of cities responding, various questions about their climate action plan, their inventory, what they have in mind. But Matchmaker specifically goes to the infrastructure question. What projects do you have in your city that are climate related that you would like funding for? And these have ranged from tree planting to flood control to pipe fitting to leakage resistance, but they're really very specific. And I would offer them both to my other panelists. Matchmaker really is a map for where some of the federal effort could go right today. But the beauty of the Matchmaker is the name Matchmaker. We specifically intended it to trigger public-private partnerships, so that, and something we've observed, are two main things that I would like to just throw out there as main observations. One, that in the cities, the sustainability function is perhaps still too far away from the financial functions, that the parts of the city that are planning the budget, planning investments, planning for the long term, they're not infiltrated yet, shall we say, with climate change thinking. And to bridge that gap would be very, very important to realize and meet the infrastructure needs, because so many of them are related to climate change aggressions, let's call them. And then the second thing is the cost of capital. Cities, this is a time when municipal ratings and loan lenders and bond issuers are all very focused on climate change risk. And it will not be easier for cities to address climate change over time. It's only going to get harder. So with regard to the challenge. So now is the time to really accelerate, as the mayor said. And the Matchmaker program really tries to put these two things together. The infrastructure need with the specific city, with the financial amount required, with the potential lenders or issuers who could come into it. And of course, with the president's plan, that could also be matched by federal funds. But the point is that we have this database now, which is very specific and could be very, very useful to certainly the American Mayors Association, the Resilient Cities, but also the federal government. And thank you again for seeing the value of the match, because it's lonely in the vanguard, but it's fun to be out there.
Absolutely. It's a great program. We're super excited. And thank you for telling us more about it, Paula. And maybe Chair Mallory, just to wrap up the theme of the public-private partnerships. So in the recent announced White House plans, whether it be the jobs plan or some of the climate announcements, the role of the public-private partnership plays prominently, it feels. Can you talk about how municipalities might consider these partnerships? Oh, you're also on mute. Perfect. You're good.
Thank you. I think it's clear that the Biden-Harris administration believes it's important to mobilize private investment to tackle many of the crises that we face today. They're of a type that really, as the mayor was just saying, we all have to really be in and to be part of developing the solutions in a way that I think is quite significant. And one way to do that is through the sort of public-private partnerships as an approach. So, for example, financial institutions are key players in modernizing our power grid. In the American Jobs Plan, President Biden has proposed the creation of a targeted investment tax credit that will build more resilient transmission systems and mobilize tens of billions in private capital to help us do so. The plan also establishes $27 billion in clean energy and sustainability accelerator to deploy private capital to clean energy efficiency, and clean transportation. And these investments have a particular focus on overburdened and underserved communities that have not yet benefited from clean energy investments. So this will provide much needed funds to municipalities and shows a kind of an example of a kind of partnership that can be very important as we think about other ways in which the communities can benefit.
That's great. Thank you. So I'd like to pivot a little bit to a topic that is just so important. And we really can't discuss climate change without addressing the topic of racial and social justice. I'd love to hear from each of you your thoughts on how cities can address the outsized impact of rising water, or fires, or potable water shortages, or storms on Black, African American, Hispanic, and high poverty neighborhoods. And I envision this almost maybe as a conversation, and I am happy to take whoever wants to go first on this broad topic.
Well, I'll start and certainly then defer to Chairwoman Mallory and to Paula, because it's a big topic. And Chair Mallory and I just had a recent conversation where we discussed a lot of these issues. It's so big that sometimes you kind of feel as though it's difficult to get your arms around it, because these individuals in these communities have been impacted by climate change for many years, decades. When storms come, many people who are living in areas that are prone to flood, for example, along the Gulf Coast, in the city of Houston, where there are fires, where there are tornadoes, you name it, they are impacted. And then when a coronavirus hits, they're impacted again and pushed down a little bit further. And you're not just talking about a storm that comes and goes, but in this case, we've been dealing with coronavirus for 14 months. And then so you have the health disparities that are built into that. And then the economic impact on businesses and jobs, people losing their jobs. They've got the health disparities. They're still trying to recover, for example, from extreme weather events. And then in Houston, when you layer on top of that the winter storm, people, for example, who don't have generators at their homes, and the power goes out, then comes the water, and then they have busted water pipe, limited resources. It just becomes one burden after another, and it forces you down. And so it's a huge issue, and that's why we have to address climate change, our resilience strategies, economic strategies, all in a very holistic sense, because these communities, they keep getting hit. One of the things that when I came in as mayor almost 6 years ago, I said to the people in the city of Houston, I didn't want to be the mayor of two cities, the cities of have and have not. I grew up in one of these underserved communities here in Houston, Acres Home. And I'm pleased to say as mayor, I still live in that same hood. And I've chosen to stay there intentionally, but a lot of that has to do with my mother's influence, who told me never to leave. So I'm still in that neighborhood. But the point is, we have to be very intentional and directional on our resources and on our investment. So, we've developed in the city of Houston what I call my complete community initiative, in addition to Resilient Houston strategy and our climate action plan. It's the complete community strategies where the focus is on building affordable housing, in fact, mixed income housing, quality neighborhood schools, economic business job opportunities, sound infrastructure. Again, I go back to the American Jobs Plan, green parks and green space, all of those things that you say, what does a neighborhood need in order to sustain itself? And then at the same time, we factored in a climate equity coordinator, because we can come forth with all of these strategies, but if equity and inclusion are not at the front, then we will miss the boat. We'll do some good things, but the same communities will be left out. So it's about including these communities and then working very closely with all of our partners in order to revitalize and transform these communities. And lastly, what I will say, when I came as mayor, I told the people in the city, I didn't want to be an incrementalist, because you can be an incrementalist and do a lot of little things. And then at the end of your term, nobody sees the little you have done. And that frustrates people. But now it's important for us to be transformational. So at least when you've done, that they can see the transformation on their neighborhood, on their street, and that makes a huge difference. But it takes working together and a holistic strategy, and that's why I'm just excited about what the Biden administration has done on the American Rescue Plan, and now on the American Jobs Plan, and their focus on equity. And then I think Paula made mention about making sure we don't build highways in such a way that we are destroying communities or wiping them out and displacing folk, because that again impacts communities of color.
Chair
If I can
Mallory.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
No, I defer to Chair Mallory. Please go ahead.
Thanks so much. Yes, and like listening to Mayor Turner, I'm renewed in my inspiration about what it is that we can do. As he mentioned, we spoke recently, and I left that conversation also excited about what can happen. I mean, there's just such possibility right now. One of the things that President Biden, has committed to in this, is part of the really what the work that the administration is doing more broadly, but will certainly be impacted by the American Jobs Program, is this idea of committing 40% of the overall benefits of significant federal investments on to benefits to underserved and overburdened communities. And the focus has been on applying those funds towards clean energy and energy efficiency, clean transit, affordable and sustainable housing, training and workforce development, the remediation and reduction of legacy pollution, and the development of critical clean water infrastructure. Those are the things that have been prioritized. But as we're looking across the federal government and programs that are available, they may not be limited to that. And we're calling this initiative, the Justice 40 initiative. And so there's a lot of thought going on right now about both what are the right programs and how do you kick off an effort like this, and again, as the mayor was saying, and make it have an impact on people's lives in a way that they can see. And it's imperative as we do this work that we're working with mayors and other state and local governments to make sure that these funds are actually being delivered in a way that works for the communities that are in need, and that we don't find ourselves getting the money and distributing it and thinking that we're having an impact, but in fact not having an impact. So we can't really discuss climate change, as you said in the premise of the question, unless we're sort of figuring out how we address some of these longstanding issues, racial and social injustice issues, because it very much affects whether or not we're actually going to even have the success on the climate front, just by virtue of the way that of the communities who seem to be the most impacted by a lot of the severe storms and other events, unexpected events that people are facing. And I just want to close out with a quote that Vice President Harris has said that I bring up because it sort of shows the way that the administration is in thinking about all of these issues. She said, "We know that we cannot achieve health justice, economic justice, racial justice, or educational justice without environmental justice." And so they all fit together and are an important part of how we see what solution looks like.
It's a great quote. Paula, your turn.
Well, thank you. And I, of course, echo what has just been said. But what I would just throw in also is that the environmental community needs to listen to African American leadership more than it has in the past, and to recognize that leadership. I mean, there is a broad network of experts in the environmental justice community. One of my dear friends, Peggy Shepard, national figure, started the West Harlem Environmental Action Group 20 years ago in New York City. Historically Black colleges, they all have schools of environment, schools of business. There's a tremendous amount of leadership that can be brought to bear, and excellence brought to bear to this question of equity. And you know, it's a sad commentary that there's been this sort of marginalization of issues. But now is the time to bring those two together, and there's tremendous resources. And the only other thing I would say is that, again, back to Matchmaker, we do have a capacity building tool for cities for ways to incorporate more voices, to get down to the community level and listen to the community organizations, or hear the individuals who are convened by those community organizations. And we're going to have an overlay to our Matchmaker questionnaire that now drills more deeply into the social questions of concern. So, you know, the time is upon us to really put these two things together. And Vice President Harris said it perfectly. Justice is justice, and you can't separate the type of justice.
Jim, can I just add one point there? Can I just add, and because I want to follow on what Paula said, and I couldn't agree with you more. That's one of the reasons why I chose I wanted to be head of the U.S. Climate Mayors, because oftentimes we discuss it, but we need to recognize, for example, that the climate change is directly impacting communities of color, more so than anyone else. And we can't discuss climate change in a sort of neutral sort of sense, that these voices, the people of color, need to be at the table and a part of these conversations. The Robert Bullock that I'm proud to say that the Biden administration has acknowledged at Texas Southern University, who's been fighting these issues for decades and under-recognized for decades. His voice needs to be amplified at the table. And because there's a direct impact on these communities. Environmental justice is real. And we need to make sure that their presence is very much at the table, a part of these conversations, and helping to design the strategies that are being put in place. Otherwise, we'll do good and still miss.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, I have been advised that it's time to wrap up our discussion. We could keep going. I have been so inspired by all of your leadership, and it does give great hope that with the alignment of all of these different facets of our communities and our private sector, that we can truly make a big difference here and enact the change that we're looking for. So let me conclude by thanking you for your insights and your ongoing efforts serving our communities and tackling these challenging but critical issues. It was wonderful to be here with you today, and thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, panel. Our conference is now coming to a close. We want to thank you again to our generous conference sponsors, our presenting sponsors, AT&T, Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, Diamond sponsors AARP, Casey Family Programs, Cities United, Wells Fargo, and Comcast. And a quick-fire chat sponsors CTIA, International Well Building Institute, Starbucks, Verizon, and Waste Management. And our gold sponsor, United Airlines, and our silver sponsor, ShotSpotter. I want to thank you also to the AAMA staff and leadership for making our conference engaging and informative. And thank you to my fellow mayors for your participation and support during the conference, as well as throughout my term as president. It has been an incredible honor to serve as president of the African American Association. And I'm proud of the work we've done and excited about the change that we'll continue to make over the upcoming years. So let's continue to use our voices, our minds, and passion to uplift and transform our communities and nation. And I look forward to our continued growth under the leadership of President Turner. President Turner, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, President Price. And again, I don't think we can say thank you to you enough for your fantastic leadership and during some very tough times. You know, it's difficult when we haven't been able to meet in person, but I would tell you, seems so we've been together. We may not have been in person in one another's presence, but we have been together. So thank you, and again to you, your wife Valerie, and look forward to continuing to work with you. You know, the gavel has changed, but look, we want to maintain that relationship. To all of the officers of Aama, to the board, executive board, to the advisory board again, let me thank you for what you have done. To the business council, look forward to continuing to work with you. And then to all of our mayors out there, look, we've got a lot of work to do. The struggle continues, a lot of work. So let's all work together to reach out to every Black mayor, regardless of where that mayor may be, rural Texas, Midwest part of the country, on the East Coast, West Coast, North, South. Let's reach out and make it happen. And then lastly, to the staff, thank you so very, very much. We have an incredible staff, truly dedicated and committed to this organization. So let me just personally, thank you. So having said all of that, to everybody that participated in the conference, appreciate that, the sponsors, underwriters, just like Mayor Price said. And then let's enjoy the day. And look forward to seeing people in person soon. Let's get this virus behind us, and then we can come together. So having said all of that, with the gavel, we stand adjourned.